Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the DN WhatIf, with another fanfiction. This is the movie of What If Deku Was Saved by Bakugo. All credits for this video go to their respective authors, so please support the real author. Check out the link in the description for more details. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Stop, Katsuki grunts out, wiping the sweat off his mouth. With the shitty nerd moves already, he keeps his posture loose, ready to jump back into the fight should Deku decide to attack. But he won't. Katsuki can see it in the distant, thoughtful look in his eyes. Deku shakes his head, looking for all the world as if Katsuki's words had only just reached his eardrums when they should have seconds ago. Sorry, Katsuki only rolls his eyes in response. Deku at least has the decency to look sheepish. Thanks, Kaken. He resumes a more flexible position, not unlike the one Katsuki's had from the moment their sparring lulled. He doesn't bother to hide his smug grin. Just 'cause you're all six quirked now doesn't mean you don't need to learn how to fight like the rest of us. Deku glares at him. It's the same look he had when they were 4 and Katsuki stole his favorite All Might plushie. Katsuki'd bet his entire trading card collection that Deku'd react the exact same way if he did that now. It's almost comical how little Deku's changed. The tensing muscles in Deku's legs are a lot less jolly though. Katsuki barely has time to dodge the nerd's high kick. He follows it up with a punch of his own, aimed at Deku's right shoulder. He dodges, trying to sweep Katsuki's legs from under him. Katsuki jumps away just in time. Deku's fast. Faster than he was before. Less overthinking and more action. Damn, Katsuki thinks as Deku tries a sweep with his other leg. Why did Katsuki have to go and be helpful? Katsuki aims a kick at Deku's stomach. It manages to graze his leg as Deku backflips away. Still not fast enough, huh? Katsuki grins, not wasting a second in leaping after Deku. Shut up, Kaken, Deku yells between evading Katsuki's carefully planned series of blows. Katsuki can feel himself closing in on the smaller's defenses. Deku can't trade blows like he used to, and Katsuki's going to use that to his advantage. Almost there. He hits Deku's arm, hard but not enough to cause serious damage. Katsuki knows Deku will have difficulty moving it for a while. He aims for his other arm, but Deku blocks it with his leg. He grabs the nerd's shoulder. There, if he can just pin. Up close, he can see Deku's mouth curve into a small, satisfied smile. Katsuki's eyes narrow. The nerd has something planned after all. Deku uses the arm Katsuki hit hard moments ago to punch Katsuki in the chest. He gasps, unwillingly reaching for the spot of the attack. The little shit probably knew exactly where it had hurt. It only takes a second for Deku's grin to disappear. Kaken, Deku says coming up to his side, I'm so sorry. I didn't. It was just a lucky shot after all. Are you okay? Fine. Katsuki grits out. Let's sit down. Deku says, leading him to one of the bigger mats in the corner of the training room. Katsuki would have protested if breathing wasn't so damn hard. I'm really sorry, Deku says for what feels like the millionth time. This time he actually bows though, which Katsuki decides is taking it too far. I told you, it's fine, Katsuki snaps. His annoyance is at an 8 on the Deku scale. It's not enough that Deku won and refuses to get back to sparring, he also needs to rub it in Katsuki's face. Typical Deku behavior. Okay, Kaken, but I think we should go to Recovery Girl. No, I don't fucking think so. I could have hit something serious. She said that you should be careful with. That's enough, Katsuki decides, jumping up to tower over Deku's weak frame. Deku's small and pathetic. Just a pebble. What about you, huh? She banned you from fighting. Let's go tell her that, shithead. He lets off an explosion aimed at the floor. Deku barely reacts. He doesn't look angry, as usual. No, Saint Deku could never be angry at anyone. Instead, he has this somber, condescending look about him that pisses Katsuki off. You can tell her, but we should go to her. Deku says calmly. Katsuki's other hand explodes, always putting others first. Perfect Deku. If he could just wipe that look off his little face, he could easily. Katsuki's strong. He has an explosion just waiting for him to direct. Katsuki steps back and takes a deep breath. Remember, it's just a Deku thing. He's not normal like the rest of us, he tells himself. Don't do something you'll regret. Kaken. He's just Deku. He's always been like that. He's not looking down on you. Kaken? He looks up. Deku has a worried expression on his face. He's deliberately avoiding Katsuki's gaze. He's guilty. His month-long coma really helped make Deku a lot less punchable. He looks like he's a soft breeze away from toppling over, wringing his bony, deformed hands pitifully, even though Katsuki knows that must hurt like a bitch. Maybe they really should have listened to the healing hag. Katsuki sighs. I really am fine, Daizuku. It was just the remembering, that hurt. Opening up to make someone feel better. That's a hero for you. Hope you're watching this, All Might. Oh, I understand. Deku nods, shoulders dropping. I'm really sorry, though. Is it just him, or did Deku's coma revert him back to his middle school self in more than just looks? His constant apologies are really getting on Katsuki's nerves. Katsuki grits his teeth to stop himself from yelling. It's fine, okay? Don't sweat it. Okay? Let's go eat something. I'm fucking starving. Once in the harsh light of the changing room, Katsuki notices the blood. Not on the floor, the walls, or his chest now. Deku's fucking pants are covered in it. The fuck is that? Katsuki asks, gesturing at Deku's legs, just in case Deku decides to be very slow on the uptake. Deku freezes in his movements. Then he smiles, all strained and tense, and that's more than enough for Katsuki to know not to believe anything that's about to come out of the nerd's mouth. Ah, that. Just some dried sweat. I still get exhausted during training, but I'm trying to do better. He goes back to changing as if he really believed Katsuki would drop it after that. It's fucking dry and hard, Deku. I can see it from here. He touches the spot, making Deku yelp with a startled kaken. And very fucking bloody. Katsuki says, demonstratively holding up a slightly red-coated finger. I must have gotten a scrape during our fight. Sure you fucking did, Katsuki scoffs, and I'm All Might. Both of them fall silent, Deku because he's probably hurt, and Katsuki because he doesn't want to say anything he might regret later. He wants to do better. He doesn't want to hurt Deku, not usually, but the nerd makes it really fucking hard. Katsuki sighs and lets himself drop on the bench next to Deku. All Might, Katsuki can feel his voice falter embarrassingly. It's just a fucking name. He repeats it more strongly. All Might wouldn't want you to keep doing this shit, He can feel Deku turn his head to stare at him, but Katsuki, a gaze is drawn to the cracks on the floor. They travel all the way up the right corner wall. U.S. supposed to be a prestigious, state-of-the-art facility with no property damage that isn't fixed within a day at most. That just goes to show how much things have changed. He told you to live, remember? We all told you that. But you weren't really listening. I was caken, I swear. Then why do you keep doing this shit? Even after we dragged your ass back here, you still think you have to do everything by yourself, but you want to help everyone else with the smallest of problems. Don't you see how much of an arrogant hypocrite that makes you? He tears his gaze away from the cracks, back to Deku. He expects to see tears in his eyes from talking about All Might if nothing else, maybe a bit of a glare for shitting on him for helping people, maybe some shock at Katsuki bringing this up after months of no one really addressing it. Instead, he's met with a dried-eyed Deku who looks nothing but guilty, who's twisting his hands again. He can almost hear the apology on the tip of the nerd's tongue, and he doesn't think he can bear to hear it. Fucking stop that, he says, grabbing Deku's wrist. Your hand is fucked enough already as is. Deku tries to get his hand out of his grip, but Katsuki's hold remains firm. Deku looks up at him, confused. Good. Katsuki wants Deku to finally listen to him. Listen, Izuku, you did everything All Might asked you to do. Everything your stupid quirk legacy requires. That's not? It's not fucking what? Katsuki cuts him off. All for one's gone, you got rid of Shigaraki. Deku flinches. You did. And damn right you did. You did everything you fucking had to do, Dekizuku. And you did it well. But there's still a lot to do, Deku says, all indignant. The world is in shambles, and all of us need to work together to rebuild it. And the villains aren't all gone either. All of us. Katsuki repeats, voice serious and strong. Huh? You said, all of us. Which means you can take a fucking break. And you can ask for help because we have enough people to help now. Putting the world first is fine, but who the fuck are you putting first now? Huh? You really don't have a fucking excuse not to take care of yourself anymore. But I am taking care of myself. I promise I am. You don't need to worry. Deku chances another try at removing his arm from Katsuki's grip. When it doesn't work, he starts tapping his knee. His nervous habits have always made him look kind of deranged. In the first place, you're the same. I've never seen you ask for help, especially not with personal issues, and never with injuries. When Shigaraki stabbed you, you refused to stop fighting. And now you refuse to get your chest checked out when your heart was torn out a few weeks ago. They both freeze. It feels like time has stopped. Katsuki feels a pang in his chest, spreading from center throughout his entire body. Just hearing about it makes his body act weird. Sometimes he thinks he can hear Edgeshot pump his body for him. Despite dying because of him, Edgeshot never stopped making his heart beat. Deku hasn't brought this up before, all careful about saying the wrong thing or shaking him up, as if he was some weak loser. He hates that. He wants to prove him wrong, but he knows that he's right. It's aggravating, someone having to die for you to live. There's nothing that could make you weaker. For a while, their labored breathing is the only sound in the room. The cracks aren't spreading, which is good, but why haven't they been repaired yet? Eventually Deku breaks the silence in the most annoyingly predictable way. I'm sorry for saying that. It's just that. You're the same as me. His voice is soft, unlike before when he was almost yelling, not in anger, but in something wilder, scarier, like desperation or concern or something. Katsuki finally drops Deku's hand and leans back against the lockers, going for casual instead of shaken. You're right. We're both fucked up. Deku lets out a startled laugh at that. Yeah? Katsuki snorts. After another moment of silence, Deku speaks up. He hesitates. Let's both agree to go to Recovery Girl. Katsuki doesn't need a lot of time to mull this over. Deku's fucking bleeding from who knows where. Separately. Katsuki stresses. No way in hell is he letting that patronizing curse of a woman scold him in front of Deku. Separately. Deku agrees with a small smile. Let's go eat something first. I think Round Face made some matcha. 2. It's sad, isn't it? Tape Arms says. Katsuki turns around to kindly tell Tape Arms not to make unnecessary, useless comments, but Dunt's face beats him to it. What is? He asks, confused, and follows Tape Arms' gaze. Oh, yeah, he says awkwardly. Katsuki decides to do the same, so that he can determine if they deserve to be yelled at. Ah, it's the same as it was yesterday, and the day before that, and before that? Ever since Deku has had the strength to walk. The first day after his coma, Deku managed to sneak out, come along with them, without anyone being the wiser. Probably used some of his quirks to get past the security at the gates. Once they were in the middle of stopping some villain wannabes from destroying a recently rebuilt building, no one could really do anything but try to stop Deku from dying. The nerd wasn't bad at fighting. Katsuki hates to admit it, but Deku helped out a lot that day. He could still use his quirks, the same as before, or that's what it looked like. At least until Deku passed out towards the end of the day, in the middle of lifting some average-sized building blocks, and it was revealed that Deku did, in fact, have 5 fractured ribs and a broken collarbone. Since then, the duo of Copycat and Sensei searched the leaving crowd for unauthorized runaways. Deku felt very bad about making his friends and most everyone at the scene worry, as well as causing extra work for several people at the time and after. It didn't, however, deter him from trying the same exact shit every day, sheepishly claiming that he's better now whenever he's caught. Only that no one buys that shit. It's stupid if you ask Katsuki. Not fucking sad. He's the one who keeps fucking showing up. Katsuki points out reasonably. If he didn't, he wouldn't get in trouble. It just makes the time to get through security a lot fucking longer. Bakugo, Raccoon Eyes huffs. It's not that simple. Yeah, I think this is really hard for Midoriya. Tape Arms says. I don't think Midoriya's been doing too great. Shitty Hair adds quietly from next to Katsuki, also looking at the scene. Yeah, no shit. Currently, they're at the sensei lecturing Deku phase of the process, in which he takes runaways, usually Deku, sometimes some other medically unfit person, and talks in on them about personal responsibility if Katsuki had to guess, probably giving them some horribly unpleasant task to do as punishment. It leaves Deku looking all embarrassed and guilty, but still, he keeps coming back. Copycat doesn't have the authority to let people pass, so they have to wait until the lecturing's done. And it usually takes so fucking long that their class is searched separately to all the other UA leavers. Who knows why Deku hasn't thought of joining other classes and have them wait an additional 20 minutes. Probably because Deku wants to make Katsuki's life as hard as possible. It's his fault if you ask me. Bakugo. No. He cuts her off. He could be eating enough and do the simple training he can do. Katsuki knows it's not entirely fair of him to point this out when he had a not exactly recommended sparring match with Deku just a few days ago, but he's feeling petty. And instead he's here, trying stupid maneuvers to do debris lifting outside. He crosses his arms and turns away from the pathetic scene. It's stupid. It's not like you'd be any different. Raccoon Eyes says under her breath. Ha! Katsuki says, letting off an explosion in Raccoon Eyes' direction. She blocks it with a small shield of acid. Do you want to repeat that? You don't exactly have a track record of following medical advice, friend. I never broke 1,000 bones. Guys, Shitty Hair says, stop that, Katsuki does when he hears the grave tone of his friend's voice. I'm serious. I think there's something really wrong with Midoriya. Dun's face frowns. Yeah, he's all coma drained and still wants to fight, but I think he'll get it together soon. Shitty Hair shakes his head, worried eyes still transfixed on Deku. I don't know, I might be wrong, but lately Midoriya looked really down to me. Raccoon Eyes puts a hand on his shoulder. I think we've all been pretty down after everything. Shitty Hair shakes his head again. I think he's taking it worse than everyone. Sometimes I feel like he trails off and shakes his head again. Just not really here. Shitty Hair's words make everyone lapse into silence again, either staring at Deku or deliberately avoiding looking in that direction. Shitty Hair's worried. He's usually good at reading people, so there must be some truth to it. But he doesn't know Deku like Katsuki does. The nerd's fine. He's just beating himself up about stupid shit, but soon he'll be back to his annoying old self. He's always been like this. The people around him don't look convinced, but at least they're listening. As long as he's not allowed to leave and get himself killed, he'll be fine. Shitty Hair says, which isn't much of a response considering Katsuki's very considerate speech. Maybe you're right. Even though Shitty Hair sounds unreasonably unsure of this, Katsuki smirks. Of course I am. But of course, Deku only lives to thwart Katsuki. Katsuki's always known that, but he's been trying to convince himself of the contrary for the past several months. That is very hard to do when Deku keeps proving him wrong. Shitty Hair got hurt when a very unstable living room collapsed on him. It wasn't too bad because he's pretty strong and had the presence of mind to use his hardening before it happened, but he still sprained his ankle. Katsuki reluctantly accompanied him when it became clear that he wasn't very good at walking on his own. It looked pathetic, so Katsuki helped out like the good hero he is. But that also meant that Katsuki was there to hear Healing Hag say, "Oh, and tell that Midoriya to come see me. He didn't come for his checkup." Just as they were about to leave. Huh? Why the F? Why didn't you check him over when he came to see you? Healing Hag huffs loudly, as if it was Katsuki's fault that Deku's entirely unreliable. Well, that was over a week ago. Over a week, I stressed the importance of weekly checkups for him, but of course he wasn't listening. It's only been 3 weeks. 3 weeks, just like Tashinori that one. Wait. Katsuki interrupts her no doubt extensive tirade. He's heard enough of them to feel an instinctive fear of being tied to a bed again. Does that mean he didn't come see you the day before yesterday? Not unless he managed to look like that third-year Sato. He was my only UA patient that day. She crosses her arms. Tell Midoriya to come as soon as possible. You can't just go back to fooling around after. Katsuki storms out before she can finish. Turns out Deku never went to Healing Hag, even though Katsuki did, very unwillingly, pay her a visit 3 days ago, even though he wasn't the one covered in blood. But no, Deku probably decided he was too good for keeping promises. Fucker probably never intended to keep it in the first place. He's all about being nice as long as it serves him, but it's all fucking superficial. Bakugo, Shitty Hair says, grabbing his arm, "Where are you going?" "To beat some sense into that damn nerd." Bakugo. Shitty Hair scolds in that annoyingly Dekai way of his. "What? I have to do what he asks, and he just gets to walk away and do whatever he wants, huh? How is that good?" "I understand how you feel, but try to be nice about it. Like I said, I don't think he's doing too well." Katsuki finishes with some very sarcastic air quotation marks. "I've been trying to be fucking understanding and talk to him, but did that do anything? No, it didn't do shit to get through that thick skull of his. Enough of being nice, he needs some fucking honesty, or he's going to get himself killed." That makes Shitty Hair falter. Rightfully so, Katsuki made some great points. Just, Shitty Hair sighs, dropping Katsuki's arm. Don't be too hard on him. The time for that has passed in Katsuki's opinion. Fine, he scoffs. Where's Deku? Katsuki asks upon bursting into the common room. He lets off an explosion to emphasize the urgency of his question, not because he's too angry not to. He glares at the extras. Deku usually hangs out with half and half, round face, frog face, and 4 eyes are all spread out on the couch, accompanied by textbooks instead of a Deku. He's taking a nap. I don't think we should. Bakugo storms off before she can finish her unnecessary should sentence. As if round face knew better than him. He doesn't take the elevator, despite its efficiency, taking the stairs to cool off a bit. It doesn't help. When he arrives at Deku's door, he's even more furious. Deku was the one who proposed the visit to Recovery Girl, and he said he went to see her but only after Katsuki did. He did this knowing how much Katsuki loathes those visits, calmly listening to him complain about the healing hag, telling him that they'd get through this together in that cheesy way of his. And after his own supposed visit, Deku told him that it was just as hard for him, that he's reminded of All Might and Shigaraki every time Recovery Girl examines him. Katsuki remembers feeling this stupid warmth in his chest, when there's usually only pain in that area. He remembers feeling less alone, understood. He didn't tell Deku that, but he can still see his knowing smile in front of him, as if he was wearing it right now. Back then, he thought it was nice. Now he knows it was taunting. Deku sharing his own deepest feelings, his own vulnerabilities, just to help Katsuki with his own, felt impossibly kind in that moment. And for once, he didn't hate Deku for it. But all those words were meaningless. Deku tricked him. Used Katsuki's weaknesses against him, and why? Just to make himself feel better, and get a rise out of it. Deku, he yells and opens the door without knocking. The fucker doesn't deserve more of a warning. He enters, deliberately stomping his feet, but Deku's nowhere to be seen. All Might's smiling faces are the only humanoid features of the room, and they look about as lifeless as the man is. It's creepy that Deku didn't change his room at all, despite everything. Clearly the whole thing about Deku still being affected was a lie to make Katsuki feel better. And Katsuki fell for it. It's pathetic. He hates it. Deku, he repeats. No response. He's about to duck under the bed to see if the asshole's hiding there when he hears a muffled "kakin" come from behind the door of the half-bath. Huh? Yes, shitty Deku, he replies, banging on the door. Take your stupid dump later. We need to fucking talk. He hits the door hard one more time and tries the door handle, which is locked as expected. Deku's always been a prude. Just a moment, Kaken. I just need to, finish up. Katsuki scoffs at the nerd's antics. Fine. He'll wait for a bit. There's no window in the half-bath and Katsuki isn't moving an inch from his position by the door. Deku has nowhere to run. He'll get what's coming for him. The door handle moves just as Katsuki's about to kick the door down. Fucking finally. Katsuki's about to start yelling at Deku, not sure what he's starting with, but there's a lot to say, so he's sure something relevant would have made it out if Deku didn't. If he didn't. Katsuki changes tracks mid-breath. What the fuck are you wearing? Oh this, Deku says, looking down at himself with a level of self-consciousness that isn't nearly as high as the situation requires. It's a bathrobe. Katsuki rolls his eyes. I can see that, dumbass. But why the fuck are you wearing it? It has the worst depiction of the former top 10 heroes Katsuki has ever seen. It was probably printed about 5 years ago. If Katsuki's memory serves him right, he's not a nerd, but he's smart and the colors, the size of the characters, All Might's hair, it's not yellow in real life. Katsuki's never seen such bad hero merch. Who signed this off? And who in their right mind would buy this? Katsuki knows Deku has a better bathrobe, Hawks themed, so why? Oh, I didn't have anything else in there. He looks a lot more self-conscious now. Good. He should never have gone anywhere near this monstrosity. But why the fuck were you naked while taking a... He falls silent at a disgusting thought. Were you? He doesn't ever want to imagine Deku in a situation like that. It must have shown on Katsuki's face because Deku's unhealthy pallor is quickly replaced by a worrying shade of red. No. Kaken, no, I wasn't. I would never. I mean... He keeps looking around the room as if his hero merch could help him. It's just, I was. As much as Katsuki enjoys seeing the nerd squirm, this kind of topic isn't exactly something he wants to discuss either. All right, I got it. You weren't jerking off to Endeavor. He enjoys Deku's squeak. You just take some weird naked dumps. Whatever. Seeing Deku helped calm him down a bit, but he's here for business. He sits down in Deku's rolling chair, feet on the desk, uncaring of wrinkling the loose piece of papers underneath. He's not leaving until Deku comes clean. We need to fucking talk. Sure, Kaken. Deku seems to get the message. He locks his bedroom door and sits down on the edge of the bed, right across from Bakugo. What's up? I just went to Healing Hag today. He starts slowly, graciously giving Deku a chance to come clean. Are you okay? Deku asks, getting to his feet to look him over. The others didn't tell me anything. He's acting like nothing's wrong. Of course he is. That's fine. Katsuki's going to enjoy wiping that look off his face. I'm fine, Katsuki snaps. Shitty hair had a sprained ankle. Sit your ass back down, Deku. Deku sits down slowly, brows still furrowed. Is he okay? Yes, he is. Katsuki doesn't say anything else. This is your last chance, Deku. Deku seems to sense the tension, but he doesn't look any less confused. He opens his mouth as if to speak several times before finally saying, Then why? Healing Hag asked me to tell you to come to your checkup. Deku's shoulders sag slightly. Thanks for telling me, Kaken. Deku says with a small smile, You're a great FR. That's enough. Will you drop the act already? What? Deku's confusion is infuriating. Katsuki jumps to his feet. You know damn well what I'm talking about, Deku. Katsuki says, voice not coming out as furious as he intended it to be. You never went to her like you said. You never kept your fucking promise. You didn't have a stupid, painful moment that his voice breaks. Why the fuck does it do that? Kaken. It's not like I give a shit about that anyway, but you should think of a better fucking lie if you want to fool me next time. I didn't believe it for a second. I'm sorry, I'm just really sorry. I can't explain why, but I promise that I didn't mean. Katsuki ignores him. And I'm not some hurt person you need to babysit. In fact, I'm doing hell of a lot better than you're doing. I'm not the one who's not allowed to fight, who has to be dragged back to his room every day because he's too weak to even set foot outside of Yua. I'm not the one who can't even feed himself properly, who has to be babied by everyone else just 'cause he's too stupid to do basic things by himself. What can you even do? You can't even lift building blocks without fainting. You're fucking useless, Deku. Katsuki stops, breathing heavily. He didn't. Useless Deku, you'll never amount to anything. He can hear his own delighted voice taunt, echoing in his ears, different stages of his life overlapping. Deku's face doesn't look that different from back then, either, a strained, apologetic smile firmly in place. But his eyes, although they're staring at the floor, from his position Katsuki can clearly see how hazy they are. What if Deku's hearing the exact same thing Katsuki is? He wants to knock some sense into that condescending piece of shit, but he doesn't want to feel guilty about it. Kaken, you're right. I'm not much good to anyone right now, am I? Deku says, chuckling lightly. It sounds wrong. He holds his elbows tightly to his chest, and it reminds Katsuki so much of 8th grade that he's not sure he's going to be able to say anything. I'll hold him down. Shut the fuck up. Those weak arms won't help him much anyway. I know it's not really my place to give advice, Kaken. I just thought, I wasn't lying to you. Going to Recovery Girl always reminds me of Shigaraki and All Might. He always used to see come for some reason. He laughs again, but it sounds even more wet than it did before. I know he was just he shakes his head. Anyway, when I woke up after my coma, he wasn't there. But Recovery Girl was, and she's great. She is, but she told me, he coughs, but Katsuki's pretty sure it's a disguised sob. I know, Izuku, you don't. Why? Why did Katsuki have to say all of that? It's fine. He still sounds shaky. Deku wipes his face in his sleeves. After a moment, he looks up at Katsuki. His eyes are red, but he doesn't look like he's about to burst into tears like one'd usually expect from him. I'm really sorry I lied to you about going to her. But what I said was true too. I wouldn't lie about something like that. I swear. Please. You have to believe me, Kaken. I do. Katsuki says, voice hoarse, only belatedly realizing that he really does. I'm glad. Deku says, and he finally stops staring at him with those desperate, open eyes. Why aren't you angry? Katsuki wants to yell at him. Why the fuck aren't you yelling at me, like I did at you? Why aren't you telling me to fuck off? Why are you the one apologizing? Katsuki leaves soon after that, claiming that he needs to check up on shitty hair. Instead, he's alone in his room, attempting to get an early night's sleep, surrounded by empty walls that were once covered in All Might merchandise, repeatedly trying to swallow the lump in his throat. He didn't even tell Deku to go to Recovery Girl, to fucking get help for his injury. Instead, he called him weak and useless. Very effective. Katsuki's the one who's fucking useless. Why did he have to yell at Deku like that? He doesn't even believe those things anymore. When they went to rescue him, Katsuki told Deku he'd make things right, but he's not acting any different. Deku almost died defeating one of the greatest villains in existence. He managed to capture more villains than any of them. He's All Might's chosen one. He's nationally recognized as one of the greatest heroes of their time, and he isn't even an official one yet. He beat Katsuki in more spars than he didn't. Deku can't possibly believe those things, right? Right? No. He was just being, well, Deku, Katsuki decides, only agreeing to make Katsuki feel better. It's annoying, but nothing more than that. He'll be more careful in the future. He can make it up to Deku some other time. It's fine. Why can't he shake the feeling then that it's really fucking not? 3. The light sleep Katsuki eventually falls into is short-lived. His stupid conscience conjured up a scene of All Might and some other fuckers scolding him for what he said to Deku. He's pretty sure they're what he imagines the past users of One for All to look like. It was a nightmare by the mere fact that his imagination let him down in their designs. All Might and Big Loud Guy were the only ones talking, but the others were happy to glare at him in the darkness behind them. It was fucking weird. It's surprising Deku's not more insane if the ghosts in his head are anything like that. Katsuki's pretty sure Deku hasn't talked to them since he woke up, or at least that he hasn't heard their voices in his head like a schizophrenic head case. Maybe that's why Deku's not trying harder to regain his strength. And maybe the past users finally decided to leave Deku the fuck alone. Katsuki wishes his consciousness would let him sleep. Headaches from lack of sleep make him want to blow buildings up instead of repairing them. And that doesn't work well with the already high number of ruins. He sighs, dragging himself out of bed to take a shower now that his classmates probably aren't around. It's 3 a.m. The showers should be empty now. It's against school rules to leave their rooms this late, strictly speaking, but no one's really cared about those for some time now. He tries not to think about Deku on his way there. He figures he deserves a few moments of reprieve after having both his thoughts and uninspired dreams revolve around him. The halls are empty and quiet, which is exactly why he chose this hour of the night to leave his room. It's still creepy though. Katsuki prides himself on his good sleep schedule, getting a solid 9 hours of sleep every night from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. He's been able to stick to that despite everything, so he isn't usually one for late-night strolls. The walls in their dorms aren't too thick probably to help teachers find disturbances quicker. It's entirely unnecessary otherwise. Now, Katsuki finds himself missing the quiet hum of some video playing in the background, the sound of stomping feet, whose owner is usually oblivious to their volume, or even the annoying chatter of his classmates gathering in their little groups inside one room or the other. He never thought he'd want to hear those things, but here he is, too spooked to walk through quiet halls without looking behind himself every 5 seconds or so. It's pathetic. Katsuki's glad when he finally arrives at the showers, at least until he hears the telltale sound of running water. Fuck. Why can't anything go right for once? He's about to leave when he sees the Hawks-themed bathrobe on one of the benches. Deku? Why is he showering this late? Was he also hiding in his room? Is it because of Katsuki? He feels the familiar knots of guilt tighten in his stomach. He should probably leave, but that'd be easy. Deku probably doesn't want to see him, but Katsuki needs to make sure Deku's leg injury's healing fine. If it isn't, he'll drag him to the healing hag. If it is, he'll quietly sneak out of the room. That sounds pretty heroic, Katsuki decides and crouches in the left corner, behind some towels hanging off the rack right next to the lockers. He can just barely make out the area where Deku left his clothes, but he's sure Deku can't see him. It's the perfect hiding spot. It doesn't take long for Deku to leave the showers, towel around his waist. He looks around. His eyes move over Katsuki without a hitch, but Katsuki holds his breath just in case. Katsuki feels weird spying on Deku like this, but it should be fine since they're both guys, right? And he's only doing this for Deku's own good, not for some nefarious reason. Only now, after casting his gaze in every corner of the room, does Deku deem it safe enough to remove his towel. Katsuki is in the perfect position to see Deku's lower body, and there's definitely something wrong there. He leans a bit closer. Deku has these thick, raised, worm-shaped scars all over his thin upper legs in varying shapes of red and blue. Some are big enough to span his thighs. Some of them aren't fully healed yet, probably, judging by the black and green coating them and the red surrounding them. There's blood flowing down in unsteady paths on both legs, and it's coming from 2 wide gashes on each leg. They are definitely wide and yellow enough to need stitches, Katsuki can tell, even from a few feet away. Still, Katsuki finds it hard to get on with his plan. Deku's quick to put on his overly long boxer shorts and pants, which makes it easier to confront him without the awkward nudity. But Katsuki finds that he can't move. The rest of Deku's movements are ample, slow, sluggish even, but still Katsuki can't bring himself to do what he planned. He's scared, Katsuki realizes once his hands start to shake. Those injuries, he can't get the image of those legs out of his mind. Katsuki isn't stupid. That many straight, almost identical scars in one area aren't likely to be the result of training or fights. They are. Katsuki clenches his fists in the fabric of his pants. Deku did those. Katsuki's pretty sure Deku did those. He's going to get out from behind the towels and confront Deku any second now, but first he'll let him get dressed fully. That's basic human decency, right? Then what? What the fuck is he supposed to do in this situation? Deku didn't even wipe the blood off his thighs. He barely even looked at them. He just put on his clothes as if there was nothing wrong with them. And now he's packing his bag slowly, lethargically, sighing every once in a while, but not saying anything. From what Katsuki can see, his face is closed off. Katsuki's scared because he doesn't know this guy. Deku wouldn't slice open his own skin. He's not some emo attention seeker. Deku's happy-go-lucky, nerdy, determined, annoyingly selfless Deku. He just wouldn't do this. He wouldn't just leave his wounds uncleaned. He's smart enough to know that those could be fatal. But what if that's exactly? Katsuki jumps at the bang of the door. He takes a look around. Deku's gone. Katsuki should go after him, but how do you look your friend in the eyes after this? Deku's left wounds untreated before. Katsuki wasn't surprised when he saw the blood on his thighs, but they were never this horrifying. Someone should drag Deku to Healing Hag. Someone kinder, someone more compassionate. Katsuki should tell someone. No, Katsuki shakes his head. That'd be easy. Katsuki can't just put off the responsibility for this. He knows Deku best. If he can't get to the root of this, no one can. He can do this. He'll confront the nerd tomorrow. Deku's strong. Katsuki knows that all too well. He'll get through this. He's smart. He'll take care of those wounds once he's back in his room. Deku's determined. He'll stop this shit soon. This was a one-time thing. Deku's fine. And Katsuki's more than capable enough to help him. He'll do it tomorrow. Katsuki leaves the bathroom an hour later without showering. He feels grimy the next morning. In more ways than one. He really should have taken that shower. He couldn't sleep, but he didn't want to find Deku's blood or whatever in the showers. He just didn't want that, okay? It's not like he was scared or anything. He just wasn't in the mood to deal with that. He felt the insane urge to check on Deku every hour or so. He mostly managed to suppress it, but one time at around 4:30, after a vision of Deku lying limp in his own blood, whether it was a dream or just some very vivid thoughts, he couldn't tell at that point. Katsuki gave in. He jumped out of bed, ran down the hall, down the stairs, all the way to Deku's door, where he stopped, stupidly, not having the courage to knock. He walked up and down in front of it for a while, unsure what to do. Trying to open the door revealed it to be locked, predictably. Then he pressed his ear against the door, moving his head around, trying to find the perfect spot to hear Deku breathing or something, just some sign of life. Eventually, he convinced himself that he heard Deku snore, even though Katsuki knows that the nerd's always been a silent sleeper and left. In retrospect, Katsuki can be glad no one caught him doing all that weird shit. He knows Bird faces a light sleeper, who also happens to like taking nighttime strolls. And even Deku. He knows Deku gets up around that time. What if he had opened the door when Katsuki was basically making out with it? That would have been ridiculous. Not to mention he isn't ready to talk to. Deku's bleeding. Can why? What? Katsuki says, dropping the bowl of eggs he was scrambling. Round face and 4 eyes both turn to him. The rest of the conversation in the kitchen lulls, and Katsuki can feel the other's curious eyes on his back. He doesn't care. What the fuck did you just say? Round face doesn't speak up for a too long moment, then she carefully says, I said Deku's bleeding. He cut himself doing the onions. That damn nerd can't be left alone for 1 second. I wanted to ask Ida where the band-aids are. She frowns. Are you okay? Katsuki tisks. Yeah, whatever. His classmates are smart enough to leave him the fuck alone after that. Not much of the eggs has spilt, luckily. He goes back to scrambling them, trying to ignore the shaking in his hands. He feels the unreasonable urge to go see Deku, to make sure he's alive. It's just a small cut, he tries to tell himself. But what about the others? What if? He shoves the bowl at Dun's face, who wasn't really doing anything other than distracting Raccoon Eyes, and leaves the kitchen area. If Deku's cutting onions, he's doing it at the long table in the living area. He tries to look casual as he strolls in and watches the nerd dice onions slowly, clumsily, but with his entire focus. He has a band-aid on his left thumb and it isn't too big. But that still doesn't explain. Why the fuck did you let him slice stuff? Katsuki asks Round Face and Frog Face, who are cutting vegetables entirely too calmly right next to him. He gestures at Deku pointedly, just in case they're too dumb to get the obvious. Round Face's brows furrow and Frog Face narrows her eyes at him. What? Deku asks from his left. He ignores him. What do you mean? Frog Face says. Midoriya is perfectly capable of cutting vegetables. He's been doing it every day. Round Face nods along to that. And they call themselves his friends. He lets out a humorless laugh. He shouldn't fucking use his hands too much. That's what Healing Hag said. Yes, but small movements are good to build up strength. Round Face argues with just as much ferocity as Katsuki, as long as it doesn't hurt too much. Guys, Katsuki laughs again. And you think he would fucking tell you if it hurt? Round Face falters for a moment, then turns to Deku. Do your hands hurt, Deku? No, but guys. Fee, she says, glaring at Katsuki as if that'd prove anything. If Midoriya has any difficulties, we trust him to tell us about them. Frog Face says calmly, also glaring at Katsuki. She's always been quick to get pissy with him. They're fucking useless. Fine, whatever. Kaken. If anything happens, it's your fault. He says, leaving with a much better glare of his own. Despite his righteous indignation, Katsuki wishes he could tell someone and have them supervise Deku. If he didn't show up to the debris cleaning, people would get suspicious. He hasn't missed a day since he was cleared to go. Still, he can't help thinking about Deku the entire time. He's pretty sure Deku has some form of training with Sensei, who can't be an active hero either in the afternoon. In the morning, he has an hour of physical therapy with Moonface, an extra Yua hired, but nothing else. That means he has plenty of time alone too. Katsuki swallows the thought. Katsuki hopes Sensei notices something. He could do something. Stop Deku from... No, he doesn't have to. Katsuki will handle this. The way he's handling it isn't perfect, Katsuki will admit that. He blew up an old bathroom wall without looking inside the kitchen first. The hero who was doing fuck knows what in there managed to escape unscathed, but Katsuki still got an extensive patronizing lecture. The hero didn't appreciate Katsuki pointing out the inefficiency of going inside a ruined kitchen. The hero stormed off, almost as angry as Katsuki by the end of it, promising to file a complaint to Yua. Good luck with that, Katsuki thought sardonically. Get in line. The brief satisfaction he got from yelling at that incompetent hero wannabe was short-lived, however, for his classmates didn't appreciate his behavior very much, or so they said. Dun's face even pointed out that he'd been cranky all day, which got a well-deserved, unfortunately evaded, explosion thrown his way. Needless to say, those comments made Katsuki crankier. Worse still were the people who took the good old patronizing approach of worrying about him instead of their own business. Shitty Hair came up to him after Katsuki got into a fight with Round Face about her being in his area. She claimed that there were no assigned areas, which was technically true, but couldn't she let it slide for one day? And tried to get Katsuki to open up, or something equally cheesy and infuriating. You know you can talk to me about anything, right? No. People like to say that, but Katsuki'd always believed that to be bullshit. There were some things you need to handle by yourself. But I can tell something's wrong. It's been a while since you lashed out like this. Lashed out? Was he a dog? To his credit, Shitty Hair didn't give up. He kept clinging to Katsuki, and he's pretty strong, mind you, kept trying to get an answer out of him, but Katsuki wouldn't budge. Not until... Is this about Midoriya? Katsuki stiffened, and Shitty Hair must have noticed it under his sharp gaze and palms. It is, isn't it? Your Araka told me you were acting really weird this morning. Are you fucking gossiping about me now? Shitty Hair sighed. He'd been doing that a lot. Katsuki was glad that this was at least equally as frustrating for him as it was for Katsuki. No. She was just worried. About both of you. Yesterday after Recovery Girl, what happened? Katsuki could feel the familiar sensation of his gut clenching and immediately knew this was going too far. Midoriya didn't go to Recovery Girl like he promised, right? Is he Bakugo tore his arm out of Shitty Hair's grip and flew off, ignoring his surprised cries, trying to find some unclassmated area to explode. Eventually, Cementos found him in the middle of it and escorted him back to UA. He probably has one of his dear classmates to thank for that. You're doing more harm than good at this rate, he said sternly. Use the rest of the day to cool off. But Katsuki wasn't able to cool off. He was supposed to use his time out in the field to cool off, but that didn't help, despite getting some exploding done. It just made him feel angrier, more on edge, and now, back in the dorms alone, he's sure he can't keep this up. He needs to do something to solve this issue. In this case, due to the urgency and severity of it, exploding stuff just isn't that effective. It won't help. Deku finds him rummaging through his stuff not half an hour later. Katsuki prides himself on not freezing up at that. Instead, his movements become quicker, more frantic. What Kaken, do you need something? Where are they? He says, slamming a drawer shut. It had some stupid scribbled papers inside. What? Deku takes a few seconds to look around. Did you break the door? Katsuki empties another drawer, rifling through even more useless notes on the floor. Nothing. Where are they? He asks again, this time a bit more aggressive. Deku takes a step back. What? Where's what ID didn't take your stuff? I swear. Katsuki turns to Deku, glaring at the All Might Silver Edition poster behind him. Where are your blades? Deku stiffens. My what? Your blades, razors, knives, scalpels, whatever you're using to destroy your two only somewhat functioning limbs. Deku seems too shocked to speak for a moment. Then he does what he always does and says, What are you talking about? Katsuki decides to come right out and say it. No reason to beat around the bush. I saw you in the showers today, and Deku, you had the most enormous precise gashes I've ever seen. On your thighs, and you know what? They didn't fucking look like training accidents. Katsuki's not sure what he wants to hear from Deku. Not some apology, that's for sure. Maybe he's hoping there's some other explanation for this that he saw wrong even though Katsuki chose the perfect hiding place. He wants to hear that Deku isn't really doing this shit. Maybe he's hoping that there's some villain that managed to mind control Deku into cutting himself, and that Deku was only doing his same old savior thing by not letting anyone know. Then Katsuki'd be able to find the villain, beat him up, and then shove Deku at Healing Hag. But Deku doesn't say any of that. He goes with undesirable option number 1. I'm sorry you had to see that, Kaken. He laughs breathily. His shoulders slump. It must have looked pathetic. I don't need your fucking apology, Izuku. I just want a reason. He gestures wildly at Izuku as a whole. As much as he prefers anger, he can feel it dissipate slowly, leaving uncertainty and fear in its wake. Deku takes a few moments to gather his thoughts. It was just I was feeling down about All Might and everything. And I just didn't know how to deal with it, you know? Deku says, way too conversational. So I took the blade out of my razor and cut myself a few times. It went deeper than I expected, and I promised myself I'd never do it again. Deku smiles slightly. It was only that one time, I promise. Katsuki would clean 1,000 buildings for that to be true. It's bad enough, but it's fixable. It was a mistake that Deku regrets and won't ever repeat again. It wasn't a conscious decision. Deku would go get patched up by Healing Hag, follow his recovery plan and get back to his feet in no time. And Katsuki would be right by his side to challenge him, even if Deku has all the quirk advantages. Katsuki wishes he could believe that, but I was there, Izuku. Katsuki says quietly. Izuku's face falls. It wasn't just a few cuts, those are at least a year's worth of scars and barely healed cuts. Deku crosses his arms over his chest tightly, staring at the floor. Kaken, I don't know what I can say or do to make up. Just tell me why. There's no real reason. You permanently disfigured your leg for no reason? Katsuki laughs without humor, taking a few steps towards Deku. Tell me, why are you fucking doing this? I don't know, Deku says, shaking his head wildly, looking up at Katsuki with desperate, pleading eyes. Please. Katsuki can't take more of this. He turns away from Deku. It's because of me, isn't it? Katsuki says. What? Deku asks, sounding shocked. No, of course it isn't. He's indignant. Katsuki shakes his head and kicks the floor. A few stray pieces of paper fly up in the air. What a mess. He made a mess of Deku's room without even realizing it. And now he has no way of knowing where any of the things go in the first place. He has no way to fix it. Kaken, are you okay? Deku asks, approaching him carefully. I didn't mean to mess up your room, Katsuki says, pointedly staring at the loose papers instead of at Deku. That's okay, Deku says, and Katsuki can tell from his voice that he's trying to smile. I didn't really need them anymore. Katsuki can feel the annoying prickling of tears in his eyes, and he's not even sure why. Deku's kindness isn't only annoying, it's misplaced and unnatural. Katsuki's beginning to realize, especially when it comes to Katsuki. It's not just heroism. This isn't right. It isn't normal. Katsuki closes his eyes, trying to fight back against the tears and gather his thoughts. And Katsuki knows Deku hasn't always been like this. As a child, he was frustratingly helpful and kind, but he had his own feelings. Not only feelings that benefited other people. Heck, Deku wasn't like this when he started at UOL. He was in middle school, at least around Katsuki, and that gives him another pang in the chest. The war reversed him, it did. Deku's a slightly more confident version of his middle school self, and Katsuki hasn't been paying enough attention to notice. Some friend he is. I'm sorry, he hears Deku say softly. For what now? Katsuki croaks. For making you feel bad, making you feel like it's your fault when it isn't. Deku takes a shaky breath. I'm hurting you, he says, voice strained with guilt. I'm only hurting everyone. Deku adds under his breath, and Katsuki's pretty sure he wasn't meant to hear. That's good, isn't it? Not that what Deku's saying is very optimistic, but Deku's opening up. Isn't that the first step towards fixing this? Katsuki clears his throat. You're hurting everyone, Katsuki repeats, proud of how little his voice is shaking. Katsuki wipes his eyes and turns back towards Deku. Deku's staring at Katsuki, eyes guilty and scared. Is he afraid Katsuki will use this against him? Hasn't Katsuki shown him that he's better than that? No, you haven't. Only yesterday you called him useless, a treacherous voice reminds him. You need to do better. Yeah, no shit. That's what you said. But Izuku, the only person who's really hurt here is you. Izuku seems confused for a moment, but after a glance down at his thighs, he seems to understand. Oh, this, he says, as if it was a mild annoyance. It sends a spike of anger up Katsuki's spine. Katsuki hasn't been able to think of anything else the whole day, and here Deku is, talking about it like it's nothing. Deku's stupid to think that. Deep breaths. Remember, this isn't the point of the conversation. Yes, this. Katsuki gestures at Deku's legs in a much more forceful manner. This is fucking dangerous. USL slicing yourself up on the regular, Katsuki says, hating the stutter that belies his casual tone of voice. not gonna fucking end well. I do it responsibly. Deku says, as if it was as simple as that. He even looks a bit indignant, which is so ridiculous that Katsuki would have laughed any other time, but for some reason, he's just not in the mood. What? Katsuki scoffs. You practice self-harm responsibly? That makes Deku falter. I'm not. You're not what? Katsuki asks, spreading his arms wide to emphasize his question. Shit, Deku, there's no other way to look at this. I know you're dumb, but this is... He cuts himself off before he can say anything else. Deep breaths. It is serious, Izuku, Katsuki says sternly, and we need to go to Healing Hag. Then you need to fucking stop. Kaken, Izuku says, as if Katsuki was the one being slow. I don't think you understand. I know what I'm doing. Those cuts, gashes. They might have looked worse from where you saw them, but they don't need recovery, girl. He says, and he sounds like he really believes that. Like the idea of going to Healing Hag with that issue is absurd. Like Deku hasn't considered it for a second. It's frustrating. And how the fuck would you know that, ha? Katsuki goads. Are you a fucking doctor? You haven't even started your second. Because I've had them before, okay? Deku snaps. Katsuki's breath catches in his throat. Deku seems to realize his mistake and hastily adds, during training. But the damage is done. Katsuki suspected that those horrible scars didn't just come out of nowhere, but to think that they once looked even worse, to think that Deku could have died at his own hand so many times without anyone being the wiser. They're all fucking useless. It's pathetic. This is more preventable than anything else. When was the first time you cut yourself? I told you it's try. Izuku, please. Katsuki doesn't plead often if ever, and he hopes Izuku sees the sincerity of it. Izuku sighs. In middle school. When? It doesn't matter. When, Deku? When you told me to do it. That's it. That's what Katsuki wanted to hear. He's finally admitting it. But that doesn't mean it's your fault. I just wanted to try it out. I was stupid. It was entirely my own decision. Katsuki's been trying hard not to think about that day ever since he saw Deku in the showers. He wishes he could have forgotten half of what he did to Deku, but Katsuki's always had an excellent memory. And he knows now that he saw Deku as a threat even back then. The things he said and did, he thought they were insignificant, but they weren't really to either of them. Deku always wore long sleeves even in the summer. He was the only one who never took off his uniform jacket, and Katsuki, being as great as he was at not caring about the nerd, noticed. And one day, he made a passing comment about it. Are you a cutter now, Deku? What? It won't make you get a quirk. But maybe, Katsuki feigned great consideration. Maybe the teachers will finally notice you. It could finally get you some friends, out of pity, but that's better than nothing, isn't it? The extras snickered in the background. You should do it and see what happens. He didn't really think Deku was harming himself, but he wouldn't have cared either way. He was just glad to see perfect Deku's face crumble. It was a passing comment, certainly not the worst thing he said, so he hadn't thought about it in years. But since yesterday, the memory's been scraping at his consciousness, scraping away at whatever denial and excuses he had left. And that's the real reason he didn't want to tell anyone. It's his own mess, his own fault. Katsuki's tried not to think about it, telling himself that he's changed, that he's working on himself, but that's not enough. Maybe he should have worked more on Deku. What can Katsuki even do to make up for this? Where are your blades? Katsuki asks again, with much less anger this time. Katsuki's desperate, but he's also defeated. Deku seems to sense this, for he disappears to the half-bath and comes back out with a box of razor blades a few seconds later. There's blood on them, Katsuki realizes as he examines them, feeling sick. Deku's been reusing his fucking blades. Deku needs professional help. Katsuki knows that. It's clear as day. It's not just that something's not right with him, but something's gone really wrong up there. But Deku hasn't always been like this. Is it really his place to tell anyone about this? He's done so much damage already. If he told someone, would they take Deku away? Would Deku not be allowed to become a hero? Like Katsuki, Deku's only ever had one dream, a dream the two of them shared. And Katsuki hated him for it, tried to beat it out of him, but Deku protected it with his entire being. The only thing he kept about himself was his dream. If Katsuki took that away, what'd be left? And how cruel would it be of him to do it when he spent most of his life trying to do it already? How is that atonement? It's his responsibility to make this right. He puts the box in his pocket before Deku notices the way it shakes in his hand. Here's the deal, Izuku. Katsuki starts. I'm taking a look at your legs. Izuku opens his mouth to argue, but Katsuki cuts him off. No arguing on that one. We deal with it together. And you're not doing it again. You show me your legs once a week. Deku takes a few seconds to think this over. And if I don't agree? Deku asks carefully. He probably knows what Katsuki's going to say, but he's saying it out loud anyway. I'm dragging your ass to Healing Hag, and that won't be fucking pretty. And if that doesn't work, I'm sicking round face on you. Deku cringes, rightfully so. All right, he sighs. Just promise not to beat yourself up about it, okay? It's not like, Kanken, that's my requirement. Deku says sternly, as if Katsuki didn't hold all the power here. He agrees because he feels guilty about it. I promise, all right, he lies. It really has nothing to do with you, I swear. Deku says, yet again the wrong person looking guilty. And it's not as bad as it looks in the first place. It's fine. It's really fucking not. But who is Katsuki to refute a stubborn, insane person? The conversation has taken an unfittingly casual turn by the end, but that's normal when you talk to Deku about anything related to him. He feels pretty good about their deal though. He checks Deku's wounds. They look absolutely horrible up close, all wrong and misplaced, like someone stuffed some veiny fatty tissue into an opening that's too small for it, but way too big to be on Deku's skin. Now it's clumped and unnatural, or maybe it is natural, but only if it's hidden beneath several layers of skin. It definitely shouldn't be breathing air on a living person. And it's so uneven. It's as if the fatty bubble strips were in direct competition with each other on both sides of the wound, and one team is clearly overpowering the other by rising high out of the skin in a very grotesque, sickening way. One cut is a shining silver crater surrounded by the bloody fat mountains. Katsuki only knows some theory, but the cut's too deep and gaping for the white stuff to be the dermis. It's fascia. No muscles were damaged, luckily, but staring down at Deku's collection of cuts and scars, Katsuki wonders how anyone could do this to themselves. It looks like torture. Deku could have caused some serious, permanent damage that could have had a lasting impact on his hero work if he had cut just a bit deeper. And if Deku had cut just a few inches to the right, he would have hit the femoral artery and bled out within minutes. How can this be worth the risk? It's stupid and a level of fucked up Katsuki can't understand. But it'll stop now. Katsuki will make sure of it. Katsuki uses all his first aid knowledge and a lot of hero-ogle to take care of the wounds as best as he can. He blackmails Deku into daily Katsuki checkups, at least until they're healed. As soon as he notices signs of a more serious infection, Katsuki will drag him to the Healing Hag. That's it. Katsuki did everything he could and Deku's on the way to recovery. Katsuki's fixing the situation. He's slowly cleaning up the mess he made. He leaves Deku's room feeling a lot better than he expected to feel upon entering it. Katsuki might even get some training done now that he's not on building block duty. The uncomfortable feeling in his chest can be ignored easily in favor of that. Deku will be fine. 4. I'm worried about Deku. Round Face says, entirely out of nowhere in Katsuki's opinion. That's a topic Katsuki's been trying to avoid. Is that why you wanted to play Lego with me? It should have been obvious. Katsuki and Round Face aren't exactly best buds, and she seemed pretty pissy about Katsuki's reckless destruction mood swings a few days ago. Which, fair enough. Katsuki can admit he was out of line. He should have known, though, that the only thing they have in common that she would go out of her way to discuss while actively hating him is Deku. Still, he didn't think about it. Round Face rolls her eyes. Don't call it that. We're doing important work here. Katsuki doesn't have anything to say to that. Round Face sends floating cement blocks his way, none too gently. Katsuki uses his quirk set them on the right path towards Tape Arms. Their quirks don't exactly work well together. Like I said, I'm worried about Deku. Who isn't? She practically throws some blocks at him. I'm serious. He doesn't leave his room as often anymore. I think he's been avoiding us. She walks a few steps towards the hole that was once pavement. Katsuki does too. And he stopped coming to the gates. That's good if you ask me. Round Face sends him a reproachful look. Look, I'm sure he'll show up there again soon enough, and then we'll wish he didn't. He's probably just tired. Round Face doesn't look convinced. I don't know. The past few days he's been so distant. And he says he's fine, but I know he hasn't been eating. And he should really eat more. Deku's wounds aren't exactly healing well, but they don't show any signs of a serious infection, and no new ones have appeared. As far as Katsuki's concerned, Deku's doing better. She sighs. I know I'm probably worrying too much, but it's really important for him to regain his strength, and I'm worried something's wrong. Especially after what you said on Monday. I thought you didn't care for that. You're right. Round Face decides to use the next round of blocks, the paving blocks, to make her displeasure about that known. She's still angry about that then. Katsuki redirects them, Frog Face's way this time. He has to remember not to get on Round Face's bad side in the future that could have caused head trauma if Katsuki wasn't able to react so well. And I still don't think it was okay for you to say that, but it just stayed with me. You know something, don't you? Her sharp eyes narrow in on Katsuki this time. She's not floating anything. They're done with this area. She must have planned this. And she's doing a great job at annoying Katsuki. Yes, he's not feeling anything else. Just mild annoyance. Kirishima said something about Recovery Girl. That she asked about Deku. Did you confront him about it? Is he... She takes a deep breath. Is he hurt? Is he being an idiot again about not telling anyone? If only she knew. Katsuki almost laughs at how hard it was for Round Face to even just ask this. If she knew, she wouldn't be able to handle it. He's being a hero by not telling anyone, and he's handling it. He had a bit of a training injury, but I took care of it. I also talked some sense into him. He won't try to hide shit for a while. Really? Why the fuck would I lie? I'm not protecting his reckless ass. You're protecting yours, a very quiet voice whispers in the back of his head. Katsuki ignores it, as he has become an expert at doing for the past few days. Thanks, Bakugo. Her shoulders finally sag. I think I've been a bit hard on you. I've just been more on edge lately. We all have. Katsuki shrugs. I was a dick. Round Face chuckles. When are you not? Instead of fighting her, Katsuki decides to change his area to actually be productive. He tisks and starts walking away. Bakugo, he hears after just a few feet. Huh? So Deku, she lets the word hang. He thought they've been through this. He sighs. The nerd'll be fine. I'll make sure of it. Those are his final words before he leaves. Why haven't you cleaned this mess yet? Katsuki asks upon entering Deku's paper cemetery of a room. He can't really see it serving a purpose, besides making him feel guilty. Oh, Deku says, sounding like he only just realized the floor was full of pages of notes he took, some of which were probably even useful for future school or hero work. I decided to organize and sort through my stuff. Katsuki hums. Deku is a bit quiet today. Normally, he'd be bombarding Katsuki with questions about his day. Katsuki finds them annoying usually, but now he finds himself missing Deku's enthusiastic interest. Let's get this over with, shall we? Deku nods. He remains mostly silent during the process, which throws their dynamic off since Deku's the one starting most of their conversations. It feels wrong. It was a lot better yesterday. It worries him as much as he doesn't want it to. He knows he's almost round-face level of paranoid, but Katsuki actually has a good reason to be. He knows how close Deku's come to dying right under their noses. After he's done checking his wounds, Katsuki asks, "What's up? You're all gloomy." He feels weird standing over Deku, so he plops down in the rolling chair, which is only marginally better considering that the bed Deku's sitting on is pretty low. Katsuki slouches. Deku shakes his head, and it seems like it's more of a shaking himself awake move than a denial. Katsuki would have bet a lot of money on Deku's sentence ending with a fine, but it doesn't. I don't know. He shrugs stiffly. He's been all tense the whole time. Everyone's so worried because of me. Deku seems surprised at his own honesty. But this is a start. It might even be a breakthrough of sorts. Katsuki read that people who self-harm often have difficulties expressing their emotions. This could help Deku. Deku opens his mouth to speak, but Katsuki hurries on to say something before he can take his words back. "Did Roundface talk to you?" Deku nods. And some of the others. His voice is small and weak. Is this what a great breakthrough is supposed to sound like? They're so nice. I just wish I didn't cause so many problems. His voice breaks. I feel like... His voice sounds chocked, strained now. He's either panicked or trying to fight back tears. Probably both if he knows Deku. That's the only thing I'm doing. Now, I don't know why they're so good to me. He sounds so genuinely confused and pained that even Katsuki can admit that it's sad. Deku and his stupid unfounded worries making Katsuki feel bad. They're nice to you because you do fucking anything for them, and you did multiple times. But, so what? You're on fucking home duty for a bit. You're still there for them, aren't you? Deku shakes his head. They more than me. Katsuki scoffs and gets to his feet. This requires Deku's full attention even if it makes Katsuki feel uncomfortable. You really don't fucking see? Deku frowns. See what? Deku's infuriating most of the time just because of the way he is. Katsuki's beginning to realize that he's not doing it to one-up anyone. Not even Katsuki. He doesn't even realize he's doing it. He has no idea that he's good. Katsuki's not sure if that's more or less annoying. Every morning, without fail, you help us prepare for the day. With breakfast, lunch, cleaning. You could be sulking in your room. That's what Katsuki would be doing. About not being allowed to go or sleep, but you're not. That's Nathai. And when we come home, you have some food prepared for us, even if for whatever reason you don't eat any of it. You make a different meal for Triangle Face and Tail because you know they don't like meat. Four Eyes is lactose intolerant, so he gets something else, usually. You make mine extra spicy, the way I like it. You're not a great cook, but you make it taste pretty good for us. That's, Deku stammers, put off. The least I can do, Kaken. I can't exactly. Remember when Dunt's face short-circuited in the middle of that horrible three-headed snake movie? You calmed him down, recharged him. When Roundface was feeling low about Bloodsucker, didn't she go to you? You talked it out and she felt better. And when Half and Half needs someone to talk to about literally anything, he goes to you. He told me you're the best friend he's ever had. Deku seems too shocked to interrupt him again. Katsuki's not sure if it's at the words themselves or the fact that he's the one saying them. And when I felt down about, you noticed it. You did everything to make me feel better, and I was too much of an asshole to thank you for that. He still is, to do it directly. And I'm sure you did similar things for the other fuckers. All of these people, all of us. We rely on you, Deku. But, Deku coughs. Katsuki's pretty sure he's a few words away from crying. But I'm not good at doing any of that stuff now. If Katsuki couldn't see how sincerely Deku is struggling to even talk, he would think this was a joke. But you are, Izuku. He wants to shake him by the shoulders and ask him if he's really that stupid. Instead, Katsuki remains calm. You're still doing all that shit. Then why, Deku's voice breaks, Why is everyone so worried? He wipes at his eyes. Deku is so slow about this, but Katsuki's only gotten better at reading Deku since they started training at UA, and he can see how horribly sincere Deku is. We're not worried because you're doing less for us, dumbass, he says, letting off a small explosion to blow off steam. That'd make us fucking shitty heroes. We're worried because you're doing less for you. Deku's shaking his head again, hands over his mouth. Katsuki's pretty sure he's full-on crying now. He hopes that means he understands. The problem is that you give us so much of your energy that you forget to save some for yourself. This needs repeating. He's hated that about Deku for so long. But he's beginning to see the roots of it, how harmful it can be, that he's only made it worse over the years. He turned Deku into the version of himself that he hated the most. It's messed up. Deku's all messed up. But Katsuki can work on fixing him, and this is a good start, despite how awkward it is. You let us rely on you, and we just want to repay the favor, okay? Deku nods slowly. Katsuki pats him on the back as an attempt at offering physical comfort. He's not sure how long he's supposed to be doing it, and he's not sure how exactly using Deku's back as a drum could help. Still, he's hoping that his cheesy words had some effect. Thanks, Kaken. Deku says once he's calmed down. You're a great friend. Katsuki shrugs awkwardly. His words seem to have worked well on Deku, if his increased chatter is anything to go by. Katsuki suggests watching an episode of School of Heroes together, which he knows they both liked growing up. Deku agrees. It's nostalgic, but also not, because he never watched it with Deku. By the time it was released, Katsuki was beating up Deku on the regular. He wishes he didn't. It's a lot more fun to watch it with Deku than any of those extras. Deku understands the little hints at real-life heroes and can keep up a conversation about them when Katsuki points them out. It's fun. Katsuki's having fun for the first time in a pretty damn long time, he realizes. He didn't notice its absence, and that seems fucking ridiculous now. Deku's pretty funny too. That's never a word he thought he would use to describe his childhood friend before, but Deku's good at doing pro-heroes imitations. If he hadn't been set on becoming a hero, he could have seriously become an actor. There's a high demand for people who can do good hero impression. And Katsuki doesn't think that changed much, even with the collapse of hero society. This is something worth repeating, Katsuki decides. Both the movie and his cheesy speech, Deku needs a taste of his own medicine, and Katsuki feels pretty good about what he managed to do today. He has gained a newfound appreciation for Deku's ability to comfort others. Being nice makes you vulnerable. You don't know whether what you're trying to do is the right way to go about it, but by trying you reveal your intentions, you show that you care, and if you fail, you will do it very openly. Katsuki's never liked failure, but this, making Deku feel better, is worth risking it for. He's been able to succeed in an area he has little experience in, and he can be damn proud of himself for it. Movie night tomorrow then? Katsuki asks upon leaving. Sure thing, Mikao. Katsuki confessed that he's always felt that Mikao, the whining, perfectionistic side character that nobody else liked, always felt relatable to him as a child. Deku proceeded to use that against him like the fucker he is. Katsuki leaves with a waving middle finger. He can hear Deku snicker in the background. He's more sure of his decision not to involve anyone else. Hanging out with Deku is fun, and he doesn't want their friendship to end before it can really begin. He doesn't want Deku gone. And he did good enough today to prevent that. 5. Deku has a sheepish look on his face when Katsuki arrives the next day. Katsuki eyes him suspiciously, trying to find a physical manifestation of whatever he's feeling embarrassed about. There isn't one. What is it? It's probably something stupid, like forgetting to put Katsuki's extra spicy onion sauce on the grocery list or something. Nothing. Fine. Katsuki rolls his eyes. Then don't talk about it. It's probably nothing important. Deku doesn't look sorry enough for it to be. It's really nothing. Deku says quickly, Let's just watch the movie, okay? Sure. Katsuki shrugs and throws himself on Deku's bed. Deku joins him with much less style. Today's episodes are about as boring as Katsuki's day has been. There were no villains to fight, no people to save, not for the first time. He's beginning to lose hope that the pros'll let them do what they've proven they're more than capable of doing. But slowly, the heroes are getting back to their annoying mindset of protecting the kids. It's infuriating. And yeah, maybe the reason why the anime seems so boring today is that he's not paying attention. But it's also a kids show that is fun to laugh and reminisce about for a bit, which gets old fast. Deku's trying, but Katsuki's not in the mood. And eventually, after several attempts at striking up a conversation about the show, Deku falls silent too. Katsuki's too worked up to care. "Did everything go well today?" Deku asks as the ending song starts playing. "It was fine. You can go get some rest if you want. We don't need to keep. Just play the damn episode." Deku does as he's told for once. There's nothing to gain from the stupid show without adding something of your own to it. And both of them are decidedly silent during the second episode. That gives Katsuki a lot of time to think. He's been very annoyed at Deku's lack of emotional openness since it probably correlates with his deformed legs, and it has always been hypocritical. But maybe, in order to get more, Katsuki needs to give more, never mind that he's clearly been the more giving one when it comes to this. So, when the annoyingly chipper ending sequence starts playing again, Katsuki breaks the silence. The stupid cleaning thing, it wasn't fine. Deku removes his resolutely focused gaze from his laptop screen and looks up at Katsuki. "The stupid heroes don't trust us with shit, even though we did more in the war than they did. It's all about keeping us safe as long as it suits them. They're all a bunch of useless assholes, and we're stuck organizing building blocks and disassembling half-destroyed buildings on a good day." He scoffs, kicking at Deku's stupid all-might-throw blanket. He still hasn't gotten rid of the merch, and it causes a clear dip in the mood, at least for Katsuki, every time he notices it, and it's fucking everywhere. Just like the stupid papers on the floor. Deku's taking his sweet time organizing them. "You're still doing a lot, Kaken," Deku says in that tone of his that's supposed to be uplifting, but comes off as patronizing more often than not. "These buildings are places people used to live in, and by helping with the cleaning, you will help them regain their lives. It's just as important as saving them." Of course Deku would see it that way. Always so fucking positive. Yeah, but there are also fucking villains around, and we could do a lot more saving there. But we also have a lot of heroes with actual licenses who stepped up. Maybe we should let them do it. Deku sounds so serious, Katsuki starts laughing. Katsuki can feel Deku shift on the bed next to him, probably in surprise, which is doubly ridiculous. "Come on, Deku. You can't be serious. You're the one who cares least about these limitations." "Well, maybe I should have cared more," Deku says. "Maybe I should have done better." Katsuki rolls his eyes. There Deku goes again. "We've talked about this. At this point, you're just fishing for compliments. You saved the whole fucking world. You got rid of the league's leader. I didn't see it, but I heard you did a great job at beating him to the—" Katsuki trails off when he notices Deku's expression darken. Did he say something wrong? This was supposed to be another one of those cheesy speeches. "I did," Deku says eventually, glaring down at his clenched fists. "I destroyed Shigaraki. I kept beating him up, and then he stopped moving." Deku's eyes are glazed over, as if he was seeing the scene play out on his all-might-throw blanket. "I killed him," he whispers, and it sounds so breathless that Katsuki wonders if this is the first time Deku says it out loud. Katsuki can't say he understands, though. "You can't be serious, Deku." But Katsuki can see that he is. "He killed thousands of people." Deku doesn't react. "What, did you expect to walk up to him and kindly ask to arrest him? Ha, what the fuck did you expect to?" "I wanted to save him," Deku cries. Both of them freeze at his outburst. Deku lowers his voice. "I wanted to save him. He was suffering, Kaken, and he should have gotten a chance, not as a regular citizen, but not dead. I knew that I was told that I might have to kill him, but I didn't really think about how final it'd be. He angrily wipes a few stray tears off his cheeks. Think about it. He'll never get the chance to explain himself. He'll never get a fair trial. He'll never be able to grow. Deku slaps his own face hard. Katsuki flinches involuntarily, but luckily Deku doesn't notice, too wrapped out in his unnecessary speech. His last moments were full of hatred and suffering, and he'll never get to experience anything else. He'll never get to see the people anyone again. He'll never drink a glass of orange juice, or even just think about anything. He'll never even breathe. Kaken, think about that. This is the most upset and argumentative Katsuki's seen Deku in a while. And yeah, maybe Deku has some points, but Katsuki can't bring himself to feel for the fucker who made Edgeshot reduce himself to a small part of Katsuki's body. He deserves not having the chance to do any of those things, if you ask Katsuki. And Katsuki'll be damned if believing that makes him into a worse hero than Deku. But that's not why Deku's saying this. He's not looking down on Katsuki, he just has some issues the size of the fucking hero tower. Katsuki's not sure if that's better. He's also not sure what to say. You go ahead blaming yourself, but who does that help? Katsuki asks. It won't fucking bring Dustface back, which makes the whole world a hell of a lot better, mind you. Just focus on improving yourself instead of thinking about all the things that asshole could be doing. Deku's silent for so long that Katsuki begins to suspect that he was too lost in his thoughts to listen. That would have been annoying, sure, but maybe it could have given Katsuki another try at saying the right thing. Eventually, Deku speaks up. You're right. I should really start taking care of myself, right? Damn right, Izuku. Thanks. Izuku gives him a small smile. Katsuki feels a warmth swell in his stomach, the kind that he usually only gets from winning. It makes this whole day a hell of a lot better. He doesn't know how, but maybe he did get through to Deku. Maybe his speech from yesterday finally sank in. It's pathetic how easy it's become for Deku to cheer him up, but Katsuki's doing it to be a good hero. And he's learned that you need to be pretty pathetic for that. So he's good. Let's watch another episode. He says, suddenly in the mood for it. Let's watch Mikao win. He doesn't really. He does. Katsuki says with a note of finality, pressing the start button on the laptop between them. He really doesn't. 6. It occurs to him the next day while searching through valuables in an unstable living room that he was supposed to check Deku's legs. He promptly blows a hole through the left side wall. How could he forget? Isn't that the whole point of his visits? Breathe. It's fine. Deku was doing well. After a few deep breaths, Katsuki's as calm as he always is, which is about one annoyance away from blowing up another wall. And it doesn't take long for that annoyance to arrive. I need to talk to you. A familiar voice says from behind him. Katsuki barely suppresses the reflex to jump in surprise. Turning around reveals a disheveled who isn't at this job, but serious half and half. Great. Just what Katsuki needs. We have work to get done. Katsuki says, pointedly throwing a torn picture of an old woman and her cat on the pile of stuff to keep. You can take a break. Don't wanna. Katsuki says, moving on to the next corner of the room. The half and half bastard follows him undeterred. Katsuki explodes a hole in the closet to look inside, ignoring its fully functional door. Half and half doesn't even flinch. Katsuki really hates him. It's about Midoriya. When is it fucking not? Katsuki moves on to the next piece of furniture. It's a kitchen drawer. He uses a precise explosion to destroy it and look inside. Nothing. He moves on to the next one. Half and Halves keeps following him around, brows furrowed in concentration as he watches him. Eventually, he speaks up. I don't think we're supposed to do it like this. Who the fuck's gonna care? These buildings are coming down. That makes sense. Half and Half says, nodding. The guy can at least be pretty reasonable when he's not busy making Katsuki's life harder, that is. And he's definitely doing that now. So, Midoriya this, Deku that. Deku ate 2 eggs instead of 3 today. Oh no, let's go to Bakugo. They seem to think Katsuki's the person to come to with all of these unnecessary worries, completely undermining Katsuki's ability to handle the situation. Katsuki knows that he's technically the one who started this particular wave of worrying among Deku's merry group of friends, but Katsuki just can't bear to hear it. You fuckers act like Deku's a 5-year-old you need to babysit. He's not. Give the guy some fucking credit. He throws the closet door across the room. Half and Half narrowly manages to dodge it. That's not what... He stops, seeming to think Katsuki's words over. Should I be worried about Midoriya? No, just fucking leave it to me. So there is. No, there's nothing fucking wrong. Katsuki's taking care of it. If you say so. Half and Half drops it and moves onto another gut-churning topic. Well, if you're going to be spending a lot of time with him, maybe you should apologize to him again. What? Katsuki didn't expect Half and Half to bring that up. In fact, no one's talked about his apology, so Katsuki hoped they couldn't hear most of it in the rain. That illusion was a relief. At least until Half and Half had to destroy it. Midoriya is still scared of you. He's nervous every day before you meet up. And it's getting worse. Half and Half explains casually. Apologize and tell him you won't bully him again. He says the word bully like he's never said it before, which, considering his sheltered childhood, could very well be the case. Half and Half has no clue what he's talking about. I already did that, and you heard it. He spits the last part, probably with a bit more force than he should, but Half and Half either doesn't notice or he just doesn't care. Probably both. Katsuki moves on to the shelves, sweeping the books to the ground. You didn't tell him you wouldn't do it again. Katsuki rolls his eyes. That's obvious, dumbass. Is it? Todoroki frowns. I don't think it is to Midoriya. What do you know? He flicks through the nearest book slowly, trying to seem calm and disinterested. It doesn't look damaged, but the pages are dirty enough to make the letters unintelligible. He throws it on top of the pile of junk he found. He has to admit, though, that Half and Half has a point. Deku has proven to be pretty fucking dense about this shit. And he was very much out of it, that time in the rain, at the very end of their rescue mission. He's not even sure if Deku remembers what he said, and Katsuki secretly hopes he doesn't. Midoriya, Half and Half says seriously. What? I know Midoriya, he's my friend. Half and Half is being extra weird today. Weird and annoying. Explain to him again in a way that calms him down. Don't tell me what to do, Half and Half bastard. Katsuki warns. He's getting sick of the fucker's condescending orders. He doesn't know shit. All right? Katsuki grabs another book, more aggressively this time. He's about to pretend to be very invested in its examination when he hears Half and Half's footsteps getting quieter instead of louder. He barely catches sight of him leaving the room before he's gone. Fucking finally. Katsuki exhales and drops the book. He didn't think there could be anything worse than Deku's friends lining up to express their worry about Deku, but Half and Half managed to prove him wrong. What right does he have, dredging up all that shit? He doesn't know anything. And then, telling him what to do. The asshole managed to climb higher up on Katsuki's people to definitely beat up someday fucking soon list. Still, as much as he hates Half and Half for them, the fucker's words keep haunting him the rest of the day. And the more often he hears them, the more they make him realize a very uncomfortable truth. His apology fucking sucked. And he really should repeat it someday. He doesn't think that day is today, not until he checks Deku's legs and notices 2 bulging lines under his boxers. He pulls up the boxer's leg, forgetting all about being considerate and barely even noticing Deku's squeak. Kaken, he says, trying to pull his leg out of Katsuki's reach. But it's too late. Katsuki's seen them already. 2 horizontal chasms filled with red and orange fat bubbles too close to the iliac artery for comfort. They look deep and fresh. They can't be more than 2 days old. The fabric of the boxers has dried fluids on it, also in lines that look like torn skin. Katsuki releases his hold on Deku's leg and shorts, but his friend doesn't move away. He says softly. I didn't mean to. You didn't mean to, Katsuki says, voice uncontrollably high and shrill. Fuck Deku. That's something you say when you forgot your homework, or hit someone too hard in training. It's not. He gestures wildly at the wound. I thought I'd only do it a bit. Surface level, but then, Deku says, gaze focused on the floor. Katsuki's own eyes don't seem to be able to move away from Deku's legs. The area around the two gaping cuts is red, just like the others were when Katsuki first discovered Deku's habit. But these look so much worse because these are the most preventable of them all. But then I went a bit deeper. I'm really sorry, Kaken. Sorry? That you did it? Or that I saw? Deku seems confused by the question, and that's enough for Katsuki to know the answer, regardless of whatever bullshit excuse the nerd comes up with. That I did it, Kaken. I'm so sorry you. Kaken. It's all about me, isn't it? Katsuki scoffs. Weren't you listening to what I said? You should be fucking sorry that you did it. Deku goes quiet. He doesn't seem to have anything to say to that, other than a mumbled, I'm sorry. He's dense, so fucking dense about this. And he's not doing better. These two cuts make his legs look so much worse. How did Katsuki not see how bad it was? There are so many scars and the wounds he saw about a week ago. Still not healed. He thought he's been doing a good job at handling this, but he isn't. He exhales slowly, trying to calm his racing heart. What has he been doing to fix this? Nothing. He realizes fucking nothing. He should try to do something now, to really make up for everything. I'm the one who's sorry, Izuku, he says, trying to meet Izuku's eyes. I want you to listen to me, because I'm not sure you were the first time I said it. He pauses for a moment, waiting for Izuku to look up at him. He won't try to get out of this, no matter how uncomfortable it is. He won't rush this. He won't hope that Izuku won't remember. I hurt you. All the time. I was a selfish, self-centered asshole who didn't care about how you felt. He's not trying to justify or explain his actions. And he's not apologizing to make himself feel better or to be a better hero, no. He's doing this to make Izuku feel better. Izuku opens his mouth to speak, but Katsuki cuts him off. I hurt you so many times and in so many different ways. Katsuki meets Izuku's eyes. Half and half was right. Izuku looks scared. And you didn't fucking deserve that. None of it. I didn't do it because you did anything wrong, but because I was the one doing shit wrong. I didn't understand or try to understand anything. It's true. He doesn't like to think about it, but it's embarrassing how limited his perspective was. He often wishes he could go back and beat up his younger self, beat some sense into him, but he can't do that. All he can do is the other kind of beating yourself up, without the time travel, that doesn't help anyone. I'm not saying this because I want you to forgive me. I'm saying this because I want you to know that I won't ever fucking do shit like that again. And I will do my best to make it up to you, as a friend. I'm so fucking sorry, Izuku. He wants Izuku to believe him, to feel just a bit lighter, knowing that Katsuki won't hurt him again, to maybe feel less stressed out, less driven to do that. But Izuku looks the opposite of that. In fact, Katsuki's pretty sure the look on Izuku's face is not that different from his own. That's why Katsuki can read it so well despite his lack of practice in understanding people in regular conversations. It's a look of guilt, and as always, it's horribly misplaced on Izuku. Katsuki wants to erase it. He reaches out a hand, not sure where, but it's somewhere to soothe, to help. It's a smooth, natural movement, but Deku interrupts him before he can finish. Kaken, and suddenly he doesn't know where to put his hand, questioning why he thought it was a good idea in the first place. He hastily places his hand on the bed to prop himself up, trying to play it off. You felt like you had to say that, Kaken, didn't you? Katsuki can feel his brows furrow. To help a useless cripple who can't even go a few days without harming himself. Deku keeps his voice light, as if to counteract the words he's saying. It doesn't work. Who isn't able to help anyone, or save them even when He was given everything. He trails off. Deku seems to realize his voice wasn't cheery enough and hastily tacks on a chuckle. Something's wrong. Something's very, very wrong. Deku's spiraling. And it's different from a few days ago. His words sound so empty, and yet they're so full, Katsuki knows, because they sound like they've been said many times before. Katsuki doesn't know how to stop him. Doesn't know if any platitudes could help with such practiced lies. How did he not realize that before? You've become a great hero, Kaken. But I'm really sorry for dragging you into this, for making you feel guilty when you really shouldn't. Shouldn't? Katsuki asks. This he can explain, and maybe Izuku will finally understand. It's not that hard to, if you aren't too stuck up your own ass like Katsuki was, and Izuku isn't. Katsuki falters. Where should he start? There are too many incidents to think of, and they make his insides twist painfully, but Katsuki's never bowed down before a challenge. A few examples, but Katsuki can't help but wonder, why does Izuku of all people need an explanation? When we were 7, I beat you up for telling me to stop picking on Block Face. Others followed my lead. When we were 9, I tore up all the All Might collector cards you brought with you to that hero presentation. You couldn't stop crying. Everyone was laughing at you, so was I. When we were 11, I broke your arm when I pushed you out the window. I don't remember why. When we were 14, you had to go to the hospital because I exploded your left eardrum. You didn't come to school for a week. Saying all of this out loud makes him realize how needlessly cruel the old Katsuki was. His excuse of feeling like Deku was better than him seems pathetic. Despite his stellar memory, the days are blending together, no matter how hard he tries to think of them. But he remembers feeling a sea of hatred towards Izuku, with rising waves every time Katsuki saw him, which was most days. And that's why it's hard to remember specific incidents, because there really were too many to count. It's about time he owned up to it and proved that he's gotten better. When we were 13, I told you to harm your... Stop, Izuku says, sounding small. It sounds like it takes a lot of effort to speak, and yet he keeps going. Please stop, Kaken. It's about that. I'm sorry for making you feel guilty. Please just stop. That's not his Deku not listening. Again? Despite himself, Katsuki feels a spark of anger. Why can't Deku be honest for once? Katsuki feels like he's been trying to help Deku and explain himself for years, and yet Deku keeps being that tricky wall you just can't blow a hole through. You're always like this. When someone owns up to their shit and apologizes, you just don't fucking take it seriously. You say you're sorry. He ignores the voice in the back of his head that keeps reminding him that this apology wasn't supposed to be about Katsuki. But it's not helping Deku. It just makes that person feel more like shit. You're not helping anyone by lying. I'm not Kaken. Deku cuts him off, more forceful than before. I swear I'm not. I didn't say it back when you guys came to save me. But you didn't do anything wrong. I'm sorry I didn't react much, but there's nothing to forgive. Izuku's looking at him with wide, imploring eyes. His voice holds so much more feeling than when he was tearing himself down earlier, and yet his words sound just as sincere. Katsuki's annoyance evaporates as quickly as it came. Deku, what? You didn't do anything, okay? I'm fine. You said you hurt me, but it wasn't really. I was the one who followed you around. Why does he? I was always in your way, and I wasn't able to contribute anything. Why does Izuku sound so much like Katsuki? You didn't approach me after primary school. It felt like he was constantly following him around, but Izuku really wasn't, not for years. Ironically, it was usually Katsuki who went out of his way to go near Izuku. Katsuki knows that now, but why does it seem like Izuku is the one who doesn't? How fucked up is that? The things you said, Izuku looks away, as if he'd have to be the one who's ashamed. They were right. You were right. Izuku, I fucking burnt you. Here, he says, pulling Izuku's shirt collar down. That scar's from me. Among the countless scars on Izuku's upper body, the amalgamation of smaller white circles has been sticking out to him the most lately. He's grabbed Izuku's shoulder many times, usually as a warning or intimidation, but even then he didn't care enough to control his quirk. It was almost a routine thing to do. He still remembers the way the fabric felt, singing under his hands. He didn't even notice that he was burning skin too. There's so much he didn't notice. Look, even your collarbone has them. Izuku shakes his head wildly. But you were right. That's not you were right for the me back then. He still sounds so sure of this. Katsuki drops Izuku's shirt as if it burned him. And right now, I'm not. You shouldn't apologize to me. Katsuki's always known that Izuku is fucked in the head. But this is another level of fucked up. He doesn't know what to do. He can feel the familiar prickle of tears behind his eyes. He messed up. He messed Izuku up too much to fix him. You're fucking crazy. Katsuki says, not wanting to believe what he's hearing. It seems like Izuku isn't able to hate anyone but himself. What I'm not. I think you need to be at like a hospital or something. I don't. Katsuki takes a deep, shaky breath. This is his fault. He shouldn't take it out on Izuku. No, I'm sorry for saying that. Katsuki swallows the lump in his throat. He doesn't want Izuku gone. That'd be the easy, selfish way out. He wants to help him. He will help him. Let's just take care of the wounds. Deku complies after another fucked up round of apologizing. Katsuki tries to let it wash over him, but it's hard. Katsuki's never been one for regret, always thinking of ways to move forward, go beyond, as the saps like to say. But Katsuki regrets this wholeheartedly. He would give anything to be able to go back and change things. But he can't. All he can do is try to atone for everything he did. He wishes someone could tell him how to do that when the person you hurt is very much still hurt, but wholly unaware of it. There's no fucking manual for that. He bandages the wounds Izuku didn't care enough to even clean properly. Katsuki had to remove small pieces of fabric from them for the cleaning. He tried to keep his hands steady as the wounds started to bleed after that. Izuku wanted to do it himself, but Katsuki wouldn't let him. He needs to do something. He stays with Izuku for a bit longer to make sure he's okay. But seeing Izuku act the same as usual makes everything so much worse, and his room remains an All Might-infested mess. It's all so wrong. Katsuki keeps having to swallow the growing lump in his throat. He wants to leave, and yet, at the same time, it feels impossible to let Izuku out of his sight ever again. It's suffocating. He's never been less sure of anything in his life. He does leave Izuku's room eventually, and he cries big, ugly, uncontrollable sobs in his own. He's not sure what they are about specifically, but he knows that they need to be let out. Then he can think of a solution to all of this. +1. When Katsuki finally falls asleep after a lot of twisting and turning, he has another one of those past user nightmares. Their faces appear in a space so dark that seeing them is a relief. They look serious. They're not arguing with each other like last time, no. They're an intimidating united front ganging up on Katsuki instead of a squabbling group of uninspiring extras. And Katsuki isn't able to move or talk. Gee, white-haired weak guy croaks, get he help. Of course. Katsuki'd roll his eyes if he could. Even in his fucking dreams, he's berating himself. Yo young Bakugo, All Might's voice says. Katsuki's avoided looking his way, but he has this way of sounding somber that mirrors his real-life self. Katsuki meets the old man's gaze. He looks worried. You see, can't do this alone. He feels like he's about to cry again, even though he knows this isn't real. After having one cry, the danger of having another increases tenfold for the next 10 hours at least. Katsuki didn't expect that rule to extend to his dreams, where he can't even move his hands to wipe his tears away. Do the right thing, the dream version of All Might says, and despite the staticky voice, it sounds just like him. He wants to yell at All Might, to ask him what the fuck that is, to give him a way to fix this. If there's anyone Katsuki would have gone to with the Deku issue, it would have been All Might. He knew Izuku well. And All Might loved Izuku more than anyone else, and All Might loved fucking everyone. He cared about Izuku, and he cared about Izuku's dream. He wouldn't have taken it away, not even for something like this. He wouldn't have taken him away. He's... All Might's cut off by Katsuki's alarm. Katsuki's eyes shoot open. He takes a deep breath now that he can finally move his mouth. The air rattles in his lungs like it would in a 100-year-old's or All Might's. It didn't feel like a dream this time. He can still remember it clearly, down to the pronounced lines around All Might's eyes, and he wishes he couldn't. He wipes his wet face in a pillow. Katsuki really has become a crybaby. He took up Deku. Even though his consciousness has weird ways of reminding him of his guilt, it has a point. Katsuki has to do the right thing. He'll talk to Izuku. Bakugo? Shitty Hair asks as Katsuki leaves his room. Were you heading down for breakfast? We can go together. Great. Just what he needed. I'm taking a shower first. He brushes his sleeve over his eyes, trying to get rid of the dried tears he knows are still there. He hopes it looks like he's trying to rub the sleepiness off. Are you okay? Shitty Hair says after getting a few steps closer. Fine. You didn't come for the movie. Katsuki starts walking in the direction of the stairs, Shitty Hair tagging along. Didn't say I would. You said you'd think about it. Well, I fucking thought about it and decided it was stupid. Shitty Hair laughs. Katsuki's confusion must have shown in his face, for he adds to explain, you say that about every movie. I'm usually fucking right. Katsuki grumbles. All right. Shitty Hair shrugs. I didn't mean to insult your film critiquing abilities. Katsuki nods in approval. They're taking the stairs, which both of them prefer over the elevator, despite living on the 4th floor. Shitty Hair, as always, seems to have an inexhaustible amount of things to chat about, and he's trying to involve Katsuki, just like Deku. Shitty Hair, in general, is a Deku-type person, all about being considerate and kind. It gives Katsuki an idea, and he decides to try it once they're in the kitchen and he's getting started on the scrambled eggs. It's still pretty early, but Katsuki's eggs taste amazing regardless of how cold they are. He interrupts Shitty Hair's musings on what he thinks their classes will be like this year. Shitty Hair goes quiet, eagerly waiting for what Katsuki finally has to say, but Katsuki's not sure how to go on. If you were struggling with something, like going through a hard time, what would you want me to do? They're the only ones at the stove for now. He says, taking Katsuki's arbitrary question in stride. That depends on the situation, he says thoughtfully. There are different kinds of hard times, you know? Fair enough. If you were grieving and hurting yourself. He hopes Shitty Hair takes it metaphorically. But maybe if he put it together, maybe then Katsuki wouldn't have to be the one to think of a solution. Shitty Hair's smarter than he looks. He could help. Shitty Hair frowns, but he doesn't look too concerned. Katsuki feels his stomach drop slightly in disappointment. Coward. I guess then I would just want you to be there for me, without making it into a big deal. Pow. Just treat me like you normally would, he says with a wink, and maybe be nicer without being obvious about it. It's Katsuki's turn to frown. Why? He thought being nice was a good thing. Why shouldn't someone be obvious about it? If it's so that you don't to embarrass yourself or make the other person feel weak, Katsuki understands, but he has a feeling Shitty Hair doesn't mean it like that. It'd feel like I'm causing problems. But you wouldn't be. Thanks. Shitty Hair smiles. But if I was in a dark place, I'd probably feel like I am. Deku said something like that too, didn't he? That he caused so many problems, and that was the only thing he was good for. Did Katsuki make him feel worse by being cheesy? What bullshit. Why can't the rules to these things be simpler? If you started acting differently, I'd think I'm making you go through stuff. You couldn't make me do anything. Katsuki bristles. True. Shitty Hair chuckles. It sounds nice and comforting. Katsuki missed it. But I'd still feel like it. That's pretty fucking stupid. Shitty Hair shrugs. Most feelings are. Those words ring true more than ever before. Not in the usual, feelings are stupid, let's not feel them way, but in the, I know I've feelings that made me do horrible, unreasonable things because I didn't try to understand them way. You're right about that, Katsuki says under his breath. He adds the eggs and some butter to their gigantic glass frying pan. Knew we'd agree on that one. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, the fucker says all innocently. Katsuki tusks and turns back to the pan. The key to making good eggs is not getting distracted in the frying process. Just when Katsuki thinks he's alone, Shitty Hair speaks up again. What's this about anyway? What? You being all openly reflective. Katsuki turns off the heat slightly for optimal gradual scrambling. I'm plenty openly reflective. Not when it comes to stuff like this, Shitty Hair says, putting a hand on Katsuki's shoulder. Katsuki doesn't look away from the eggs. They need more butter. It's Midoriya, isn't it? When is it not? Katsuki sighs. Yeah. He really isn't doing too well, is he? Nope, Katsuki says, taking the pan off the stove. He adds some cream and puts it back on. Poor guy, Shitty Hair says with so much sympathy and understanding that Katsuki feels the urge to tell him everything. He doesn't, because he'll solve this on his own, but that's the second time today Shitty Hair's had that effect on him. He's so much better than he knows. Can I help somehow? No, I think I have to be the one to do it. The eggs are done. He takes the pan off the stove before they're overcooked. Okay. Shitty Hair pats his shoulder. It feels so much more natural than when Katsuki tried to do it. Tell me if I can do anything, all right? Katsuki nods, not trusting his voice to speak. When did he become so sentimental? I'll get started on lunch with Midoriya. I'm pretty sure I saw him in the living room, cutting onions. Shitty Hair says, of course he's here already. Katsuki didn't even notice. You'll be okay, right? Katsuki clears his throat. Of course I will. Not a fucking child. Good luck. Shitty Hair leaves after one last squeeze of Katsuki's shoulder. He's a natural. He'd be better at helping Izuku, but it's Katsuki's responsibility, his mess. And that means he has to be the one to do something, right? Right? He's not so sure anymore. Katsuki decides not to go building blocking today. He asks Shitty Hair to tell Sensei he's not feeling well, but he's pretty sure Shitty Hair knows his real reason for staying. Thankfully, he doesn't comment on it. Katsuki goes to his own room first, trying to prepare himself. He paces for what feels like hours trying to think of what to say. But Katsuki sucks at this, and maybe that's what he should say. Maybe he should wait and get Shitty Hair to help him. No. That's not that'd be the easy way out. The old Katsuki would have done that, and he would have been gloating about destroying Deku's dream. He shudders at the image of his gleeful, cruel face. No, that's not an option. Eventually, Katsuki decides to just go for it. It's better than wasting time. Ever since his dream, he's been feeling a sense of urgency. Like every second he spends away from Izuku might be the second something happens to him. Izuku's door is still broken. Katsuki told him to tell Sensei, but for some reason Izuku still hasn't done that. It would have been replaced by now if he had. Great. Katsuki can feel the guilt clench his stomach already, and he hasn't even gotten over the porch. He takes a deep breath before knocking, bracing himself for the sight of both Izuku and his draining room. But neither appears. Izuku, Katsuki says, tapping the door a bit harder this time. I need to talk to you. He's trying to listen for sounds, ear on the doorframe, but there's nothing. Izuku, Katsuki says, louder, more urgent. He raps on the door, but there's still nothing. No movement, no sign of life. No. Izuku, he yells, throwing the door open. He expects to find his worst fears there. Izuku passed out, bleeding or bled out dead. But he's not. No prone Izuku. Not even in the closet or under the bed or in the bathroom. He's simply gone. The only thing left is his depressing, messy room. He sinks to the floor in relief. His knees are still shaking so much it's ridiculous. He takes a few deep breaths. Izuku must be seeing moon face right now. He's not in danger. Calm the fuck down. He manages to do that after a while, not enough not to feel like every part of him is buzzing, but enough to be able to get to his feet. He cringes at the crinkling of papers under his feet. Izuku still hasn't cleaned up, and the papers don't look any more organized than they did yesterday. He steps away from them carefully, trying not to damage them further. He's not buying the excuse of Izuku needing to organize them anymore. Izuku's probably just not in the mood to clean up the mess Katsuki made, which is understandable. He could do it. It's actions speak louder than words, isn't it? Maybe that's a way for Katsuki to show that things will be different from now on. Not because Izuku's causing problems or making Katsuki act differently or whatever, but because Katsuki is different. He starts with the papers closest to the desk. A lot of them are costume drawings and descriptions of both pro heroes and their classmates. They're good, but they make every single one of them look cooler than they are. His own too. Izuku's too nice, even in his private drawings. He puts them in the top drawer, writing their placement down on an empty piece of paper. He can hand that to Izuku later. Next, he's collecting Izuku's textbooks. That's easier since he's working on familiar ground. Katsuki has the same textbooks after all. He places them in the biggest drawer, marking it down too. He keeps going like that, getting into a familiar rhythm. Katsuki does some cleaning up every week, organizing different parts of his room if needed. Doing it for someone else is not that different. It goes smoothly, and he feels like this might actually help Izuku. One of the lower drawers isn't empty like all the others. There's a book in it. Removing it reveals that it's a thick history textbook, that boring one from middle school. It feels off that Izuku would put this one back in the drawer while leaving every one of his old textbooks lying around. But it's not the most concerning thing about him. He decides to move on after the usual cursory flip through the pages of the book. Katsuki found quite a few misplaced notes like that, but it doesn't work. Flipping the pages leads to the book, losing about 100 pieces of paper that don't look like they belonged in the book in the first place. That's because they didn't. The inside of the book is hollowed out. What the? Izuku's clearly using this book to hide something. He's about to collect the folded pieces of paper again, intent on respecting Izuku's privacy, when he sees a familiar, frustrating word on one of them. Sorry. He stops in his tracks. It could just be a part of some hero notes, but that's unlikely. If it's something that could help him gain clarity on what Izuku's thinking, he should read it, right? That way he's better equipped to handle the situation. Izuku doesn't have to find out. He picks up the sorry paper and unfolds it. Dear Mom, you've been through so much, not least because of me. I want you to know that there's nothing you could have done to help me. I'm fine. I've thought about this a lot, and I know that this is what I want. I'm really sorry to leave you, but I know you'll be fine. You can finally go to America and be with Dad. You can even travel to other places. I know you've always wanted to do that. You're free, Mom. I think you'll realize too that things are better this way. My decision has nothing to do with you, okay? Please don't be sad. I'm sorry to hurt you like this, but I hope I can finally give you the time to heal with this and remove what's been hurting you. You can stop worrying about me. You've had to worry enough for a lifetime. Please don't be sad. I'm all right wherever I am. I'm sorry for being so bad at being your son. But you're free now. I love you. Izuku. Izuku's planning on leaving again? And just like the last time, he thinks letters are enough to explain himself. Remove you from what's been hurting you. What is Izuku even talking about? I'm sorry for being so bad at being your son. Why does this sound like Izuku doesn't plan on coming back? But Yuo wouldn't let him leave. They've proven time and again that they're able to keep Izuku from going outside to destroy himself. You can finally go to America to be with Dad. You can even travel to other places. Why would Izuku's mom leave just because Izuku ran away? Why does it sound like? Katsuki grabs another one, unfolding it quickly. Dear Tenya, I've never had the courage to ask you guys if I can call you by your first names. I mean, Uraraka calls me Deku. But I was still too scared to ask her if I could call her Ochako or some nickname. It's not a big deal, and you probably doesn't want to hear about this right now, but I've always wanted to have friends where I could think about calling them that. I've always known I was too afraid to actually do it. I mean, look at how much I'm struggling even calling Tsuyu by her first name. It's pretty stupid. I've always longed for things I knew I'd be unable to do. I'm sorry for beating around the bush. You don't deserve that. It's just that there's a lot I can think of telling you. And that's because you're an amazing friend, Ida. The best friend anyone could ever ask for. And I am so grateful you were mine. We've only known each other for a year, but I've seen you grow so much, and I know you'll become the kind of hero that will make your brother proud. I hope you know how strong and kind you are. Everyone in the class knows they can rely on you, class rep. You're strong, and I know you'll be fine. I'll be fine too. I'm so grateful for all the friends I made at UA. You've accepted me without really knowing me. You don't know how weak I am. Well, by now you probably do. And I just hope that'll help you forget about me. The person you thought was dependable and determined is actually just me. I'm no one, Tenya, and you shouldn't be sad about me. I'm sorry if this is excessive. I know we've only known each other for a year, and I'm probably assuming we're closer than we actually are. I'm still not sure about how this friendship thing works. I just want you to know that there's nothing you could have done to save me. You would have tried even for me because you're a great hero already, but I would have found a way to leave anyway. There's nothing you could have done. Please don't regret anything. You did everything right. Please move on to better things. You can achieve anything you put your mind to, I know. I'm sorry for any trouble I caused. I love you. Izuku. Where does Izuku plan to go? Why do these sound so final? Izuku sounds like he'd never get a chance to see them again. But that. He turns the page around. Glass's name is written at the very top in small, careful handwriting, just like every word on these papers. Katsuki's sure Izuku's written several other versions of these and discarded them. That's the only way he would have been able to write Four Eyes' first name so steadily. Katsuki knows Izuku. He needs to figure out where Izuku plans to go. Maybe some of these have information on that. Maybe Katsuki's, that's the one he has most of a right to read anyway. He looks at the names quickly. Ochako, Kaminari, Shoto, Tsu, Siro, they're Kaken. He unfolds it with shaking hands. He almost drops it when he sees the adhesive attaching a strand of hair to the bottom of the page. There has to be an explanation. Dear Kaken, I've always admired you. You're strong and determined, and I always wished I could be more like you. I'm not sure if I told you this, but sometimes when I'm in a fight that I'm trying hard to win, I start to yell things like die or I'll destroy you, fucker, because of how often I've heard you say them. It's creepy, right? It's not. You saw me for what I really am before anyone else did, but you've gotten too kind to say that I'm the same now. Again with that crap. He wishes Izuku could stop with that. It just makes him feel worse, and maybe he deserves that, but he just wants it to stop. You're an even better hero now in every way. And I'm sure you'll do great things in your life. And I'm sorry I won't be there to cheer you on. I know you don't need me, but I'm still sad that I won't get to see the great things you do. He needs Izuku. Katsuki couldn't imagine Izuku not being by his side. But I'll be fine, don't worry. Don't blame yourself for any of this. I know you've been doing that a lot lately, but you shouldn't. Don't feel guilty about anything you think you did. This is my decision, and it was made by me alone. There it is again. The decision. What decision? To leave? It sounds too vague for that, and he should keep reading. Nothing you did contributed to it. So don't beat yourself up, okay? Become number one like you've always wanted. Please keep working on yourself and talk to your friends. I know you don't take orders from anyone, but I think these are pretty good ones to consider. I'm not sure if this'll work, but I put one for all in this hair for you. You shouldn't use it for long since it has a bad, life-shortening effect on people who were born with quirks, but you could pass it on to a quirkless person you think is worthy. I know they're rare, but I'm sure you of anyone would be able to find one. I'm sorry I'm burdening you with this, but you know most about One for All. You know that I should never have gotten it. What? Why is Izuku putting words in his mouth? But I think I can honor All Might's memory best if it's passed on to someone better. They'd have to be trained and prepared. I know this is a lot to ask, Kaken, but could you please do that or have someone do that? I'm sorry I'm not doing it myself, but I'm tired, and I'm not sure you guys would let me. Hell yeah, they wouldn't. It's Izuku's quirk. I wish you all the best, Kaken. And again, I'm sorry for all the trouble I'm causing. But I'm sure it'll make the trouble for you a lot less in the long run. I love you. Izuku. Katsuki reads the letter again. And again. He rereads the others too, hoping to find anything that proves that this isn't what it sounds like. That Izuku isn't really planning to. I'm alright, wherever I am. There's nothing you could have done to save me. I'm sad that I won't get to see the great things you do. I'm sure you'll do great things in your life. In your life is such a weird way to phrase things. Izuku never says the word dead, but it's clear that he never plans to see them again, or do anything at all, or even just be alive to witness things. This mysterious decision. There's no denying it anymore. These aren't simple letters. These are suicide notes. Take a swan dive off the roof of the building and hope you'll be born with a quirk in your next life. Izuku's planning on killing himself, just like Katsuki told him to do. Katsuki's knees are getting too weak to hold him again. He drops to the floor, uncaring of wrinkling those horrible notes. Katsuki can't breathe. He was wrong. His worst fears were lurking behind the door he broke. He can't breathe. He keeps staring at the note. The words are blurring together. He can picture himself in this same position, hunched over the last thing he has left of Izuku. One last time of Izuku trying to make Katsuki feel better. Even in death, he's too kind for his own good. Even when he should feel free enough to be honest, no. Izuku is being honest. He's been honest the whole time, and that's what makes it so terrifying. The page is getting wet, but Katsuki can't bring himself to care. Izuku won't ever need these notes. But maybe he should care more. Because if he does succeed, this is all they'll have left. No, Katsuki thinks, blowing a hole through the lower half of the note, completely disintegrating the strand of hair. Because, fuck that. Katsuki he won't ever fucking be able to find a better successor than Izuku. He won't even have to look to know that. He tries to suppress the twinge of regret he feels at burning up a few of Izuku's words too. He won't destroy the notes, but he'll take them with him to make Izuku thinks he did. Then he'll have to write a bunch of new ones before he can ever think of killing himself. That's something he can do. He gathers them up in his arms and runs up the stairs to his room. Izuku's trying to make everyone feel better with these notes. It's not kindness, not only at least. It's a lack of self-care. It's just that Izuku doesn't value himself enough to do anything for himself. He doesn't even value himself enough not to hurt himself or kill himself. In the past, Katsuki would have felt satisfied at realizing that one of Izuku's most heroic traits, the one he's always been so jealous of, is so wrong. Now he's worried that Izuku will never talk to him again after he gets him some help. Because Katsuki can finally admit that is the only option now. He's waiting in Izuku's room when he comes back. He's both terrified and relieved to see him. Terrified because this might just be the hardest conversation he's ever had to have. Relieved because while he was waiting here, Katsuki's mind conjured up vivid images of every possible way Izuku could kill himself on school grounds, and it came up with a lot. Izuku could have just not gone to Moonface. From the sound of them, Izuku wrote those notes pretty recently, and isn't that a slap in the face? Katsuki almost convinced himself that this was Izuku's plan all along, throwing himself off the highest Ua tower on the way there. Katsuki had just gotten to the point where he was ready to fly up there when Izuku arrived. "Kaken?" he asks, confused. "What are you doing back?" He's standing at T. Katsuki can't help himself. He goes up to Izuku and wraps his arms around his back without giving himself the time to think about it. It's as if his body was moving on its own. He pulls him closer, just to make sure that he's really here. He is. It's the same old Deku, only a few inches shorter than him. But his back is hunched, as always, which means the top of his head is right under Katsuki's chin. He smells like Izuku too. He's still using that All Might-themed shampoo he was bragging about as a 4-year-old. It's not Katsuki's favorite smell, but it's so Izuku that he almost wants to go to his room for another cry. Izuku's always been there. Katsuki knows him better than anyone else, and he's only just beginning to realize how much time he wasted hating someone he could like. He didn't have friends in middle school. He doesn't even know the names of half the extras he used to hang out with. They were his fans, and he thought having them made him a better hero. But he was alone. He could have had fun with Izuku. And even now, he wants to spend more time watching stupid anime with Izuku. Katsuki doesn't like movies, he finds them boring in general, but he thinks that they could be entertaining if Izuku's there to do acting bits on them. He wants to spar with Izuku again. An Izuku that's healthy and strong. And he wants to help Izuku grow as much as Izuku's helped him grow. He wants to be the one to save Izuku on his own, because he's the one who messed him up. But, Keiken? Izuku asks. He sounds worried. Katsuki wants to laugh at how ridiculous that is. Are you okay? Katsuki releases his hold on Izuku, but he keeps his eyes on him. No. Did they send you home early again? Izuku says, eyes filled with care. How can he be so invested in Katsuki's well-being when he's planning on leaving? How can he be so caring about such little things, knowing that he'll hurt Katsuki a billion times more than that? No. The real question here is, how can Izuku not understand all of that? Katsuki shakes his head. He takes a deep breath, bracing himself for what he's about to do. Katsuki says, I thought I could atone by doing what you wanted, but that's not it. He didn't tell anyone because he was worried about feeling guilty later. He thought that he'd feel bad for ruining Izuku's dream. What a load of bullshit. He's going to help Izuku achieve his dream with everything he's got once he overcomes this. Once the situation is handled by people who are better at it. He's going to help Izuku, not because he wants to be a good hero, not even because he owes it to him. No, Izuku fucking deserves it. When I pushed you out of Fuckface's way, you didn't want that. Of course, Izuku seems confused by the change of topic. No. Katsuki cuts him off. Listen to me for once, Izuku. Izuku doesn't try to interrupt him again, thankfully. You didn't want that. You wanted to die there all heroically. What that's not to you really. I would never willingly. Okay, so you just didn't care if you died. He's not even sure if that's all it was anymore. How long has Izuku actively been trying to die? Same difference. Even if there was another way, you'd rather it be you dead than me with a scratch on my pinky. Don't even fucking try to deny it, Izuku. And now you'd rather be dead then? Now you'd rather be dead, he yells, and he can hear the desperation in his own voice. Saying it out loud makes it worse. What? Izuku asks. He seems to get it quickly though, as his eyes land on the history textbook on the floor. Did you? Izuku picks it up and turns to Katsuki upon seeing the empty hole he cut. Those were private, he says, somewhere between angry and embarrassed. Who else were they for, huh? They weren't for you, that's for sure. Katsuki walks up to Izuku, glaring at him. Izuku glares right back for once. You wrote them for us. That doesn't give you the right to read them. Why do you care? Izuku ignores his question. Kaken. Izuku says in a tone that sounds too much like a scolding. Where are they? Katsuki laughs. He laughs because he thinks he might start sobbing if he doesn't. You seriously think I'd fucking give them back to you? He asks, voice shakier than he intended. So you can off yourself? Izuku's eyes soften slightly at that, as if Katsuki was an unruly child in need of comfort. I didn't mean to actually do it, Kaken. It's just a fail-safe. A fail-safe? Are you even listening to yourself, Izuku? Suicide notes aren't a fail-safe. Izuku looks down at the book by his feet. It helps knowing that if I ever consider it, I could just do it. He waves his hands around in the air between them. Not that I ever plan on using them. I couldn't do that with One for All. One for All, Katsuki repeats incredulously. He can't believe what he's hearing. Izuku's denial of how serious this is would make the situation worse if wasn't at its most fucked already. That's what's stopping you. Izuku has the audacity to frown. You know how important One for All is, Kaken. Even with All for One gone, I have to try and do what a All Might wanted, even if he trails off. You think you're unworthy? Katsuki finishes for him. Izuku cringes. You really did read the notes. Yeah, some of them, but mostly mine. You have a great plan for One for All there. He scoffs at how casual Izuku was about it, even in writing. What else is keeping you? Kaken, I won't do it. Don't worry. I know it'd cause a lot of trouble. He's twisting his hands now, eyes focused on them. I'm sorry you found them. Could you please just give them back? Katsuki separates Izuku's hands, careful not to grab his wrists too tightly. You know I can't do that. Why not? Izuku asks, looking at Katsuki. His eyes are blown wide in fear. He really doesn't seem to understand. I really am sorry. You don't need to apologize, Izuku, Katsuki says softly. It's not your fault. Katsuki's beginning to realize that more and more. He can't argue with Izuku on this. Everything in his mind is tightly screwed in the wrong place, not least because of Katsuki's teachings. It's not something that can be changed, not even with a painful, cheesy speech. It's too messy in there. You're sick. You're dying. Izuku laughs, as if it was a joke they're both in on. He falls silent when Katsuki doesn't join in. Did he really expect him to? I'm not doing it. You said it was a fail-safe. That means you see a use in those notes. It means that if certain events come true, you'll use them. And Izuku, don't you see how fucked up that is? How can you expect me to just let it go? Izuku tries to remove his wrists from Katsuki's grip, to no avail. He glances up at Katsuki, eyes panicked, probably realizing how serious Katsuki is. And even if you never use them, you'd rather cut your leg off than tell someone how you feel. Like I said, you're fucked up, and it's my fault. He keeps talking over Izuku's attempts at spewing denials. And the best thing I can do for you now is not do what you want. That's what a fucking hero should do. Should have done a long time ago. He drops one of Izuku's hands and quickly gets the mask he got from Ponytail's room. It's designed to put villains to sleep in seconds. She got the idea after her fight with the hairy giant and her failed attempt at putting Izuku to sleep during their rescue mission. It's technically illegal for heroes to use anesthetics, but some rules are still pretty lax after everything. Izuku recognizes it instantly. He tries to move away, but Katsuki holds firm. Kaken don't. Katsuki places it on Izuku's face mid-sentence, before he can think to hold his breath or use his quirks to escape. Izuku's eyes are filled with betrayal as he tries to keep them open. It'll be all right, Katsuki says, catching Izuku as he begins to fall forward. I'll get you some help. It doesn't matter if he hurt him. It doesn't matter if Izuku hates him, as long as he'll be alive to do it. Why didn't you just call me? Sensei asks as he enters the medical wing. I did, Katsuki says, leaning back in his chair by Izuku's bed. It's currently hidden by a curtain to provide some privacy during the healing hag's examination. Sensei raises his eyebrow. Not before using illegal substances to anesthetize your classmate. His teacher sits down in the chair next to him. All right, maybe that wasn't the best idea. But Katsuki was afraid Izuku would run if he didn't, and Katsuki knows he can't take him on his own. And maybe Izuku wouldn't have been able to escape school grounds, but there are too many ways to kill yourself on school grounds. The nerd wouldn't have come otherwise. Next time, call before doing things by yourself. There are other ways to do this. Katsuki cuts himself off. Sensei has a point. Fine. Sensei nods approvingly, leaning back in the chair himself. It doesn't help with feeling comfortable, that's for sure. Why can't Yua have better chairs when they're so fucking rich? Sensei doesn't say anything else, not until the healing hag emerges from behind the curtains. She looks grave. Both Katsuki and Sensei stand up. I can't use my quirk. He's too exhausted. She sighs, throwing her bloody gloves in the sink. I stitched his most recent injuries, but I couldn't do much about the ones that were older. Katsuki's surprised she could stitch any of them at all. Wait. No. She couldn't have stitched any of the cuts Katsuki saw. That means that dragging him here was a long time coming. Sensei nods, just as grave as healing hag. And they're self-inflicted? Yes, the scarring indicates that it's been going on for years. Her face sours further. I examined him a few days ago. I didn't think to check his legs, and he didn't have any wounds on his chest then. If I had just Toshinori. Katsuki's blood runs cold. Chest? Both adults turned to him in surprise, as if they didn't know he was there. Yes, dear, but I stitched them up, and I should be able to heal them when he regains some strength. Katsuki doesn't say anything. That means Katsuki wouldn't have seen these cuts at his next examination. He should have known this could happen, but he just assumed Izuku wouldn't hurt himself anywhere that could be seen in the changing room, because, well, no one's ever seen any self-inflicted injuries on him before. Then again, if he planned on killing himself, it wouldn't really matter, would it? Fail safe my ass. That damn nerd. Katsuki was horrible at handling the situation. He should be sedated until we figure out a course of action. Sensei says, thankfully respecting the strength of Izuku's quirks. Katsuki can feel his body lose a bit of tension. Sensei knows what to do. As soon as Healing Hag disappears behind the curtains again, Sensei puts a hand on his shoulder saying, "We need to talk." He leads him to an office nearby, one of those with the couches that all might like to take them to. It's almost as painful as Izuku's room. You said he's suicidal. Sensei says, straight to business as always. Hearing that word still sends a jolt of panic up his spine though. Yeah, Katsuki says, removing the letters from his pocket. I found these in his room. He places them on the desk between them. Sensei picks one of them up, skimming through the words written there. Katsuki wonders which one he's reading, if it's as depressing as the ones Katsuki saw. If Sensei's darkening expression is anything to go by, it is. Suicide notes, he says quietly. He's quick to refold the piece of paper. He says they're a fail-safe or something, that he didn't plan on using them. Katsuki feels obliged to point out. Because of One for All, I'm not sure how true that is. I understand. Sensei sighs, dropping the note back on the table. He buries his face in his hands, looking more defeated than Katsuki's ever seen him before. And he's seen Sensei a few weeks after the Jaku battle, one-eyed and one-legged in a hospital bed. He looked determined back then, scolding him for getting involved and not telling him about Izuku's quirk. All Might shouldn't have given that quirk to a child, he mutters. It's too much. He sits back up slowly, looking at Katsuki. Thank you for telling me. You might have just saved his life. You did good, kid. Hearing that feels wrong. The way Sensei is looking at him, proud and relieved, is wrong. Katsuki shouldn't be thanked. He's the one who, but Sensei doesn't know what Katsuki did, and why doesn't he? The thought strikes him. He told Izuku what he did. He even confessed to the bullying in front of the entire class, hoping that they didn't hear, but they did hear, so it counts, and still it never occurred to him to tell a teacher. An actual teacher, not All Might, because he knows they'd have to do something. Because Katsuki's scared of losing everything he's worked so hard for. He's been a coward this whole time, he realizes, only owning up to his shit in ways that couldn't hurt him. Katsuki shakes his head. Sensei, he takes a deep breath. I told him to kill himself. You what? Back in middle school, and even before that, I tormented him. There was barely a day I didn't hurt him. Katsuki's gaze is on the smooth surface of the table in front of him. He didn't have a quirk to defend himself with, and I still beat him up. A lot. I broke his arm, exploded his eardrum, destroyed his possessions. I told him to cut himself. He has burned scars from me. Katsuki pauses, staring at his hands. Hands that caused so much damage. Sensei doesn't say anything. When his dad left, I told him it was his fault, that his mom would be better off without him. Ever since he read those notes, he's been remembering more and more bits and pieces, regular bursts of his smirking voice coming back to haunt him. And he knows that even words he thought were meaningless had horrible consequences. Maybe it is arrogant of Katsuki to think everything was caused by him, but there's too much of an overlap to think otherwise. And Izuku's always looked up to him for some reason. When he said he'd apply to UA, I told him to jump off a building and hope for a quirk in his next life. Sensei is silent, and for a while all that can be heard in the room is Katsuki's labored breathing. It feels like he ran a marathon while saying all that. "Why are you telling me this?" Sensei asks eventually. His voice is a lot colder than it was before. His face has gained another layer of grave. "I'm taking responsibility," Katsuki says, finally having the courage to look his teacher in the eye. "This is what it means to make amends. This is what it means to be a hero." Sensei looks right back at him, eyes narrowed. "You know this could ruin your career?" "Yes. I'll have to confirm if what you said is true, but consider yourself expelled from the hero course." Katsuki swallows, but nods nonetheless. Even if Izuku doesn't know it, he deserves this. This is how he can help him. "Your provisional license will be revoked, of course. You can stay at UA in Gen Ed, but if you do anything like the things you just told me, you're done. I mean it. Even the slightest misstep," Sensei warns. "I got it. You shouldn't have been allowed to apply to UA at all. You know that, right?" "Yes. This'll go on your record." "I understand." Katsuki doesn't avoid Sensei's judgmental gaze. He's ready to face this head-on. "You're not angry?" "No," Katsuki says calmly. He deserves this." "Good." Sensei glances down at the pile of suicide notes on the table. "From what you're saying, you're causing Midoriya harm just by being around him." Katsuki hesitates before nodding. He hasn't really though about it, but that's probably true. If Izuku doesn't understand that it's wrong what Katsuki did, then spending time with Katsuki means reinforcing all of the bullshit Katsuki spewed in the past. Helping Izuku means not being selfish, even if it hurts. Stay away from him. At least until a professional says how we should go about this. "What's going to happen to him?" Katsuki asks the question that's been haunting him ever since he saw Izuku in that bathroom. Sensei sighs, slumping in his seat. His glare softens slightly. "From what you told me, Midoriya's mentally unstable. As a high-profile figure, we can't risk him leaving UA grounds, and mental health facilities have been overcrowded for a while. Now anyway, we'll find trustworthy professionals who can help him." It sounds like Izuku's in good hands, much better ones than Katsuki. "And will he," Katsuki says, gearing up to voice a fear he's had, "will he be expelled?" Sensei sighs again. "We'll see about that." Katsuki's ready to argue, but Sensei cuts him off. "I won't expel him for struggling, but if he doesn't get his mindset fixed, he can't be allowed out in the field. I've seen it in our private lessons. He's a good kid, a good student. I've seen how well he can motivate and inspire the people around him." Sensei's eyes look distant. He shakes his head. "But he doesn't value his life enough. Or not at all." He pauses, swallowing. His eyes wander to the notes on the table again. "He almost died more times than not, and I won't send kids into the field to die." He collects the notes and puts them into one of his bigger pockets. But it's always been his dream. I don't want to expel him. He's done a lot of good." Sensei says, sighing. "I'm not expelling him, but he won't be allowed to be an active hero until he gets better. If he can grow past this, I know he can become a very capable hero, and I don't want to deprive the world of that." Katsuki must not look convinced, for Sensei adds, "Don't look so glum. If I had been All Might's teacher, I would have expelled him too." "What?" Katsuki asks, caught off guard by Sensei's casual statement. Sensei shrugs. He was a self-sacrificing idiot. Wow. Does Katsuki being expelled make him more like All Might then? That thought makes him pause. Oh God, he's expelled. It's slowly beginning to sink in. He'll never become a hero. What he's been working towards his whole life is gone. Just a few days ago, he was complaining about not getting to beat up villains, and now he'll never get to even punch one again. All of that destroyed with just a few words. But they weren't just simple words, he reminds himself, they were words that describe years' worth of torment. He knows he deserves this, but that doesn't make it hurt any less. Look, Bakugo, what you did is despicable, and if I had heard this a few years ago, I would have personally made sure you never set foot on the grounds of any hero school again. But, Sensei says, getting to his feet, Katsuki follows suit. This is an era of redemption. If Endeavor can make it, so can you. There are ways to work yourself up to the hero course from Gen Ed. He says, opening the door. This is your first step. You did good, coming to me. He leaves Katsuki with a brief pat on the shoulder. Katsuki remains standing there in the door of a stupid comfy office that'll always remind him of All Might and the day he got himself expelled. No. This is the day he saved Izuku, the day he started cleaning up some of the mess he made. This is the most heroic day of his life. And he'll continue being a hero. And if that means being cheesy and careful, so be it. He'll start by telling the class about everything. He'll keep doing the things that scare him the most, and he'll come out stronger for it. Sensei won't know what hit him. He'll be back in the hero course by 3rd year, with Izuku by his side. He'll do whatever it takes to turn that into a reality. Yes, he clenches his fists, marching back towards the dorms. They'll both become the greatest of heroes.